Town of Lyons Board of Trustees regular meeting to order. Could we please have the roll call, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mayor Angelo,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Present.
Trustee Lowell,
Present.
Trustee Caravas,
Present.
Trustee Waugh,
Present.
Trustee Miller,
Present.
and Trustee Rogan.
We take a reflective moment of silence. Let's keep the victims of the over 100-mile tornado, our neighbors in Louisville and Superior, and all the victims of COVID in our minds. Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do any trustees wish to amend the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Caravas,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Trustee Rogan, and Trustee Miller.
Yay.
The agenda is approved.
Mayor,
Yes.
may I interrupt? We need to do our Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's the second time that I've
Okay.
forgotten it. I apologize. Please all rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Madam Administrator. Next on the agenda is audience business. This is an opportunity for anybody to address the governing body. If you wish to do so, it cannot be on any of the second readings that we have on the agenda tonight, but it can be on any other item. And please state your name and address for the record. Is there anybody that wishes to address the Board of Trustees at this time? Always help me out, Madam Clerk.
I don't see anyone, sir.
Okay, this is an opportunity for anybody to address the board under audience business.
Michael Rutter has submitted a text that he would like to speak.
Michael Rutter is online. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Michael Rutter, 425 Raymond Court here in beautiful Lyons, Colorado.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to talk about the potential for the trail access to Corona Hill from Corona Hill to Hall Ranch, and to see, test the waters to see what people think of that. I think that's a really important thing. My background is I spent 15 years with Boulder County Parks and Open Space, and now I'm currently with Boulder Mountain Bike Alliance as their Trails Program Director. And this is something that I know we were looking for a safe access pre-flood going along the South St. Vrain corridor, and then finding a way across the creek and into Hall Ranch. It ended up being that the bridge was going to be too costly, to get over the creek there. And of course, the flood added more problems to that issue as well. So I still think that's something that we should address the county with Parks and Open Space, and really just try to push to see if we can make something happen on that corridor.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else wish to address the Board of Trustees at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. Sergeant Bill Chris, Boulder County Sheriff's Office report.
All right, good evening, everybody. I have kind of a short report tonight, but I have a few things I'd like to just mention and keep everybody up to speed on. So I've been working really closely with flock camera systems. This was the 2 cameras that we're going to place on either side of the town for incoming and outgoing traffic. Another tool in the toolbox for us to identify stolen vehicles and things like that are coming in. So we are moving along really fast on that. We are in the Cdot approval for the site selections. So I left a meeting this morning over that. Depending on how fast Cdot moves on it, maybe 4 to 6 weeks on the earliest, but since we're only doing a 2-camera system, it should move pretty quickly. Meeting with Chief Zick on the water rescue plan for next year. Gonna try to iron out some wrinkles, see if we can get some better communication, some better signage. We're looking at the idea of town ordinance for life preservers, things like that. Some ideas on how to message some of that out. Some people taking responsibility for what they're doing on the river. Things like that. We had a significant amount of water rescues, ranging from actual water rescues to people just missing or stuck on the other side type stuff. So trying to just smooth out our process there. Public safety, again, being the priority here. So looking at some ideas, and we're doing some brainstorming. Hopefully we'll get that stuff in the works very soon. And then the last thing is just continuing on working on my annual report. I got delayed by about 2 weeks or so due to the fire. It took a lot of our time being on call for about 14, 15 days straight for dealing with that. So it put me a little bit behind, but most of my annual report is complete. I'm just waiting on some statistics on the crime events and incident reports over last year so I can include them in the report. So if you can bear with me, give me maybe a couple more weeks on that, I should have something to trust you all here quickly. Other than that, everything is good in town. Things are going along smoothly.
Are there any questions for Sergeant Chris? Seeing none, please stay safe, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Trustee reports. I'll go across the screen. Mayor Pro Tem Browning.
Yes, the Parks Commission met on January the 10th. Parks Director Cosgrove reported on, let's see, that I believe the report that was that the county survey that they were doing on County Road 69 access to the Martin parcel has basically been complete. I don't think I've seen it yet, but I think it's pretty much done. So I presume we'll be informed of the final results of that. But I think from what was reported that there is some I think some confirmation that the Martin parcel should be accessible from County Road 69. And then I think he also reported that Boulder County Parks and Open Space is expected to complete the first part of its review of the possible Hall Ranch connecting trail sometime in January. Let's see, the Parks Commission also is discussing with the Library District possible cooperation on some what they would call a story walk around town that would have interpretive signage and maps and so forth to get around Lyons parks and points of interest there, and also focusing on local animal and aquatic life. And then the Parks Commission is continuing to discuss and review as events develop the 4th Avenue Safe Routes to School project. So that's my report.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Lowell.
Thanks, Mayor. The Ecology Board met, but I did not attend the meeting, keeping in mind that they were reviewing the hotel plan, so I couldn't be present. So I recused myself from that. The annual report is clicking right along. I've got 22 out of the 37 inputs received and promises from most of the other remaining 15. And as I thought it would be, it's proven to be much, much easier this year than last year. We're not making it up out of whole cloth. We're just updating files and whatnot that people put out last year. Yeah, I'm hoping to see a legal update tonight on the disposition of the Keith Bell properties and their proper transfer to the town. It's dawned on me that this board really has only 4 more meetings left before a new board is seated. So it's one of those loose ends I hope that this board can tie up. Likewise, and maybe this speaks to Mayor Pro Tem Browning's comment on the Martin Parcel survey, I was hoping to see on the agenda tonight, or maybe next week, a resolution on annexing the Martin property and its subsequent zoning. This thing's been percolating now for probably 3 months, I guess. And since we can do it by resolution, I hope that we get it done soon. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Miller?
Housing and Human Services met the 10th. And we spoke about, we had actually Chief Zick and Piskey come and talk to us. We discussed the evacuating or getting the vulnerable citizens evacuated during a disaster and how we were going to manage that. Because in the past we've had the Lyons vulnerable list, and we've decided that as a town we can't, that's not something that we should do as legally, take on that responsibility. So we're trying to come up with a way to make sure that everybody is prepared. We do have Lyons prepared also that we've been talking to. So that's kind of an ongoing topic in on our agenda. And in meeting with the fire district now, we're going to start doing meetings with them to try and get the Lyons vulnerable folks enrolled in the 911 calls, like trying to come up with some sort of regular times that folks can come down to the fire department if they don't have access to computers or something like that, or don't have vehicles, that they can come and get signed up down there.
You froze, Trustee Miller.
Will fund, and I'm sorry, my internet became unstable, didn't it?
Okay, yes, it did.
The other thing that we spoke about that I wanted to mention was that the Lyons Goodwill Fund, or the Goodwill Grant, is going to be posted, or maybe it just went out as an e-blast today, perhaps. Okay, great. So any nonprofit organization here in town that needs a small grant is welcome to apply for that. That has a project that they'd like to complete over the next year. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Trustee Watt?
I was unable to attend the PCDC meeting last week, and this coming week they'll be discussing the review plan for the new hotel, so I won't be able to attend that meeting. So I have nothing to report. I did have a question. I guess I could bring it up later, but I guess I'm just curious about the status of the sale of the property on Apple Valley. We've talked about that many times, and I'd like to just request an update on that at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Carrolls?
Good evening, everybody. The Utilities Engineering Board met on January 5th. Most of everything that was discussed, you will hear in Aaron's report, and he has it nice, neat, and clean, so you've already probably read it. And after the updates, I had to recuse myself, do the same reason everyone else did for their meeting, was the Moss Rock development, and I never got a text back that they were done discussing it, and because that's what they discussed the rest of the meeting. The next UEB meeting will be tomorrow, Wednesday the 19th, 4:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Let's see. Also, I'd like to congratulate town staff and Aaron on the great work at Longs Peak Drive project and First Avenue with all the new valves and pressure reducing valves placed simultaneously working. And in his report, we'll see that hydrant pressure seems to be better on First Avenue. So great job, everybody. I know that was in the works before the flood from staff, and then the flood delayed it. So we got it done. Good job. Way to go. Just more of a question for staff to follow up on Second Avenue Bridge. The seams have already, the sealant on the seams from the road to the actual decking is already cracked. And then that last 3-4 feet before you actually reach the deck, I don't recall seeing that quick increase. It makes almost like a lip on the original plan. I was kind of curious how that occurred, or if I just missed it on our approach to that bridge. But it seems you approach, and the last 3 feet, 4 feet, it kind of goes up quite a bit, and then you get that big bump. But just kind of curious if I missed that in the original plans, or if that was supposed to be that way, or something changed. But we'll probably want to get those seams refilled and resealed by the contractor some points this spring. Then there was Times Call article that was brought to my attention by some people in town, including some people in my family. Some of the information seemed kind of off. Did we, Victoria, provide information of that, or was that just pulled out of thin air on number of homes lost? And not really, not all of our affordable housing was lost to the flood that I was aware of. I mean, Walt Self, I don't think was lost, and some of the other apartments behind Stone Cove, I don't think were lost. I'm just kind of curious about where some of the information came from. If it came from us, or if we want to maybe get it corrected on the record somehow. And then just another question. Late this evening, I got an email asking for 2 special meetings. No mention why. So, Mayor, in your report, you can explain to us. We just had a special meeting with staff and attorneys, and we're watching attorneys' fees. At least some of our board members have been watching it now. We had a special meeting just 3 business days ago. Now we're looking to have 2 more after this meeting. So could we explain why we're having a request for additional special meetings?
I think that would either be for Administrator Simonson or Counselor to explain.
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you. That's it.
And they can do it now. That's fine.
Yeah, whatever.
I think, and Dolores or Victoria can chime in here as well. The request for special meeting, if I didn't see this email, but I assume it's for the Planet Bluegrass development review, which requires 2 readings on the ordinance and the annexation agreement. And so there was not room in the existing agenda schedule to fit in with the first reading, then two readings on that annexation agreement, and the other 4 resolutions we discussed. So it was thought that maybe a standalone Planet Bluegrass meeting to handle all those issues together would make sense. That's why I assume the emails where I haven't seen the email that was sent.
Are there any corrections to that explanation?
Only that we spent a significant amount of time today during the agenda setting, trying to come up with the timing on these. The council or Attorney Dittman really wanted all the final readings at the same meeting. And he is going to be on an extended leave in part of February. So we didn't want to push this out to March. So it was I think it was a mutual effort just for those setting the agenda today to get these taken care of in a timely fashion as discussed at your last workshop.
And isn't one of those going to be a rather quick meeting, Counselor?
Yeah, the first reading of the annexation ordinance would be just to set the public hearing. So presumably it would be in and out.
So there will be a few more meetings, perhaps, Trustee Lowell. I hate to say that. I'm not a special meeting kind of guy, but we have to take care of business.
Mayor, if I may add to, I mean, the
May.
big issue here is that having the hotel development application and the plant bluegrass application come in at the same time certainly complicates the ability to get both of these done in a timely fashion.
Okay, thank you. Since Trustee Rogan is not here, I will just mention that she has really stepped to the plate in addition to her liaison positions to represent the town at the consortium of cities, Dr. Cog, and in many county commissioner funding issue meetings. I wanted to mention that. Perhaps if she was here, it may have embarrassed her, but since she's not here, I can say it. There were a couple of meetings. The LAHC met. We always discuss calls for additional sculpture. We discussed a fundraiser at the dedication of the Native American sculpture that's going to be placed in the park. We discussed, because there was a little confusion, further art shows at Town Hall, and we'll have a discussion later in the meeting in regard to the mural on Town Hall, which we also discussed at the meeting. The Sustainable Futures met, the commission met. We discussed our goals for 2022. And very importantly, they have a subcommittee that is going to meet with the UEB to consolidate concepts and finalize the people that will come forth to basically educate us on the electric issues in the future. Let's see. I have several action items that I would like to discuss and get feedback on. The first one is the driveway and drainage issues on Evans Street. When the curb was put in, basically a person could not then use their driveway as they've been used to using it. Then there's a drainage issue at the end that freezes over when it gets cold at night. And I know exactly how that feels because I have that same thing happen at my driveway coming down Stone Canyon. It levels off right there. And when the snow melts, because it creates a dam when the roads are cleared, but when the snow melts, it actually freezes over the sidewalk, and it's very, very dangerous for the residents of Stone Canyon. But there are three other things that I would like to have the board be aware of, to have the energy that I don't think has been as positive as it could have been. And if we need to have these addressed in memorandums from the attorney that are confidential, that's fine. But I would like, for my own edification, to get answers to these. Number one is Ed Bruder. Why was he promised a remedy and then we didn't follow through in regard to his situation and his water at his house? Number two, I'd like to get a determination, the analysis and the justification for charges on the WICASA sewer charges. And then lastly, I'd like to get a determination on the Riverbend taps. What did the administrator at the time base his decision on that the taps were a mistake? And when did the town officially take action, either authorizing or accepting that determination? And I understand that this may take a little time, but everybody's had a little bit of time off and a stipend as a reward. So I would appreciate getting those answers, because before I leave office, I'd really like to alleviate any negative energy in regard to those issues. Thank you. That's my report for tonight. Boards and commissions, could you please read the next item into the record, Madam Clerk?
The next item is a request for a letter of recommendation for Lyons Creates.
Do we have a presentation?
Mayor, did we skip? Did we skip over reports? I need to look at the agenda.
No, everybody gave their reports.
Okay.
And who would like to speak to the letter of recommendation? Lauren Click, you may continue.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. The staff asked me to just briefly come on and talk about our request for a letter of support. This is really a formality. It's part of the application process for the Boulder County Arts Alliance for us to become a fiscal sponsor through their organization. The letter was in your packet, so you'll be able to read the full letter if you like. This is just so we would be able to accept more tax donations, and as we have discussed as part of the creative district process, eventually becoming an independent 501c3. And also I do want to mention that we will continue to report to the board as we detailed in our annual report. And I think that's it. I do believe that a vote is needed, though. Maybe Victoria will have to tell her, or the attorney.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal motion and vote. Usually there's just either some kind of a head nod if everybody's okay with supporting this versus.
Does the mayor get to sign that letter?
Yes.
Thank you. I definitely support it then. Mayor Pro Tem Browning?
I had a question. What does it mean to be a fiscal sponsor? What does that mean?
That's a great question. It's sort of a step between, it's a step between being, instead of being an LLC or private entity, you are considered a 501c3, but under the umbrella of Boulder County Arts Alliance. So they actually help doing your taxes and things like that. It's a sort of a stepping stone to becoming a full 501c3 where you're filing your own taxes independently. They will help us with a lot of the financial recording and documentation sort of behind the scenes. And then we get to use their listing, and people still get the tax write-off whenever they make a donation.
Okay, so I think I understand. So the Lyons Creative would have an affiliation with the Boulder County Arts Group. That would be the 501c3, and Lyons Creative is just basically affiliated with them, very much like LCF and the Boulder County Community Foundation. Same type of deal.
I think they might be independent 501c3s, but it gives us the same sort of like financial backing and same sort of ability to use their tax information as a write-off. It's really common in the arts and like cultural community to use it to build out your financial base. And so when you apply to become a 501c3, you have this like background with you as well.
So the intent is that Lyons Creative will apply to itself for itself to be a 501c3 at some point.
Yeah, when we build out our repertoire a little bit more, I mean, like you said, Lyons Creates is still or as you're mentioning, it's still just a burgeoning organization. So to go from 0 to 100 as a full functioning organization as a 501c3, this is a sort of stepping stone that a lot of organizations use as we get our footing. They help us with accounting and things. And then when we want to apply, probably in 2 years, then we'll have all of this background information, and we will have some of that help in the background with the financial part of it.
And has Lyons Creates, is it already not formed as a nonprofit organization under state law?
Yeah, we have, as of, I believe a couple months ago, we have our articles of incorporation and our EIN number. Mhm.
All right, and so basically, in the future, if somebody wants to make a tax deductible donation to Lyons Creates or the Lyons Creative District that we're in the process of forming,
Mhm.
that would be made through the Boulder organization that you would be a fiscal sponsor of.
Yeah, we would be one of their, we would be a sponsee, yes. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. Everybody can feel free after we do the application in like 2 weeks to donate.
Okay. So, okay, I think I understand the organization now, so I'm in support of it.
Great, thank you.
Trustee Lowell,
Yep.
trustee Miller, trustee Wah,
Yes, all for it.
trustee Caravas.
Yes.
Oh, I get to sign a letter. How wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. The next
Mayor,
item.
can I clarify? I believe the town served as a fiscal agent on a couple occasions. I think when the library district maybe was forming, we were that in between for them since they were previously a commission of ours. And I think we also did it when there was a theater group or something, but if I recall, we could do a little research on that, but I think we've served as a fiscal agent on a couple different goodwill grants or something in the past when people didn't have the capacity to do their own audits and fiscal, watching over itself.
Okay.
And Cassie probably doesn't remember that, wouldn't know that, but we could do a little more work on that as well. I agree. I don't think it's that unusual when small groups are trying to get situated.
Okay. Discussion and direction on mural on town hall. I can read that one myself. Who's going to make the presentation?
I am Mayor Angela
Go ahead.
Farrell.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. The LAHC and myself have been very excited to do this with you. So you have heard about the mural project that the LAHC has been researching and planning for, and now we're here to ask for your permission to have this up. So the Arts and Humanities Commission is partnering with internationally renowned artist and Lyons native Android Jones to paint a mural on Lyons Town Hall. You can see here are 2 sketches of what he has proposed. The concept, it's a complex mingling of Lyons' local wildlife, native plants and insects interwoven as a kaleidoscope of colors and patterns to represent the connection between Lyons' natural landscape and the people who create this community. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things to you on this concept. You'll notice that the background geometric shapes on the sketch at the very top, it's very much a quilted pattern, and that was inspired by our quilt shop here in town. In addition to the bottom, it's very honeycomb also. And so that's based on the number of people that have bees within their yards. I would almost call it infamous if you haven't seen them, because I personally have not, but the peacocks that people talk about on Lyons happenings often, it made it in here, and the tail and the plumes are meant to represent the river of the St. Vrain River. And so then you also have the snake, the rattlesnake and trout. And then he's incorporated some of the fauna. I think you can see on the top sketch, there's a yucca that would be, a plant that would go over one of the door entrances into town hall. So it's really interesting how he picked a lot of our different species right here within our community and really incorporated them beautifully. And the location of the mural was chosen for town hall in particular because it faces our community courtyard and garden. It's across the street from the entrance to Laverne M. Johnson Park and is visible to the motorists on US 7. The project will encourage the public to remember our rich environment as we are enjoying our natural resources. It will also be a good reminder to our businesses as they come into Town Hall with development projects in our community. The design was inspired by wildlife that Android Jones actually sees in his backyard behind his studio. Jones is best described as a digital painter. He uses computer technology to capture the complex concepts while utilizing his formal background in arts. He's become well known for his many layered psychedelic works and live performances using a custom-built digital setup. His works have been projected on the Sydney Opera House, the Empire State Building. He's traveled and exhibited around the world and on 6 continents. And he's currently working on a digital art projection in the new Meow Wolf exhibit that's being built in Las Vegas. So we're really incredibly lucky to have such an artist of his caliber really wanting to give to Lyons. So logistically speaking, the timeline of this project, today we're here to present to you and ask that you approve that we have this mural on the town hall. In the spring, our goal is to go to the community and ask the community to vote on which sketch piece of work should be on the mural, or on town hall. So we really want to create opportunities to make this a community involved project. We're also considering the idea of having people come and help paint the project, especially if we could incorporate children in that. And Android Jones is very open to that concept. So we'll work on that if this is approved. And then the painting is hopefully to be completed in August of this year. And we're also talking about holding a public event in the courtyard that can maybe be in conjunction with one of our LAHC town hall art shows. Some kind of an unveiling, I think, would be really appropriate. So the price of this work is $16,800. The Arts and Humanities Commission plans to use $5,000 from the budget for 2022. So the remaining $11,800 will be paid through individual donations, fundraising, and grants. So I hope that you will see how Town Hall is really the best place for such a true legacy piece of work, and that you'll vote yes for this. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Trustee Lowe.
Yeah, thanks. Wow, Jocelyn, that's great. That is a wonderful looking mural. Being an outdoors type of guy, the only thing I take issue with is the peacock. It's not wildlife, and I wouldn't want to put a peacock up there. You might want to ask Mr. Jones if he'd be interested in putting one of our signature birds, the dipper, or maybe a kingfisher or a swallow or something.
Okay.
I don't think the peacock's going to make it there. I know it's sort of folklore here in Lyons, but it doesn't really fit the motif. But otherwise, I think it's great. One thing we're going to have to worry about is we're going to have to get Sheriff Chris buy-in, because we're going to have so many rear-end collisions as people slow down to look at it.
Good to know. Thank you.
Further comments, questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
I have a question. The 5,000 that would come from basically tax funds out of the town budget, that would be 5,000 out of the, I can't remember if it was 8,000 or 9,000 we appropriated for 2022.
Yes, 9,000. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that would come out of the 2022 budget appropriations. We appropriated 9,000, and 5,000 of that would go toward this project, leaving 4,000 for other projects.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions I can answer?
Any other questions, comments? You know, originally, I was not in favor of this, but I got to tell you, Jocelyn, that top concept of androids, with maybe the exception of what Trustee Lowell said, and maybe we could do an eagle, you know what I mean? You know, since it's right across from Laverne Johnson Park, whatever, but I think the top one, I gotta tell you something. I think it's absolute dynamite. I really do. And I look so forward to seeing it completed.
Good.
I have a couple of concerns, and I hope that Android can address these. Number one, is it going to be painted on stucco?
Okay, let me write these down.
If it is, there needs to be some kind of protective elements on both sides before he paints and after he paints.
Okay.
And as we discussed in the in our LAHC meeting, I look so forward to participating in a fundraiser, and I would look way forward to having any contribution of the funds that we raise for that fundraiser going towards this. I just think, you know, this is a total change of mind for me. I mean, I have to give credit where credit's due. I think it is just absolutely gorgeous. I really do. That's the only, my concern is, I don't even want to say it, is anybody, you know, tagging it. And basically that's why that protective coating has to be put on it once it's completed. Other than that may add a little cost, so be it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do appreciate that, Mayor, and I think that's really a very valid point. I know Android has a lot of experience with murals, outdoor murals.
Good.
So we can certainly explore that further.
Good. It's the thing. It's that it's on stucco, you know, and it's kind of a difficult medium for him to paint on. And I will add that the original intent of the LAHC was to have community collaborative art, and that Android is open to having people contribute to painting it, I'm sure under his direction, but even children is wonderful, because that was the original purpose of the LAHC. And so I congratulate you, and I support it 100%.
Thank you.
What is the direction of the Board of Trustees? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I also support this. I didn't realize, I'd heard this talked about for a while, but I didn't realize until recently, until Jocelyn or Lauren or somebody mentioned to me that Android is actually the son of Colleen Jones, who lives outside of Lyons and served for many years as a dedicated member of the Friends of the Library group and contributed a lot to this community. So, I mean, this is essentially a local native-born artist from right outside of town. And I agree, it's beautiful. If it should draw any complaints from anywhere, you can't do anything in Lyons without somebody complaining. Let's start with that. So somebody will complain somewhere. But important to me all along was that basically this wasn't primarily funded by tax money, and it's not. A minority of it is funded, only roughly a third of it is funded by tax money, and that tax money is part of an annual appropriation that the board has done for many years to the Lyons Arts and Humanities Commission. And the board doesn't try, nor should it try, to dictate to the Arts and Humanities Commission what specific projects it should spend its annual appropriation on. That's why we have dedicated artists, people who know a lot more about art and aesthetics than certainly than I do, and probably most of the board members I've served with or seen in the past. So they have a fair amount of discretion on how they spend their annual appropriations, and if they choose to spend 5,000 out of the 9,000 this year on this project. I would certainly defer to them on this, and I think it'll be good. And I welcome the community involvement about, vote for mural number 1 or mural number 2. It may be peacock versus eagle. That would be a fun to have. So I'm in favor of it.
Trustee Lowell.
Oh, yeah, this is great. I love it.
All right, Trustee Miller.
Yeah, I think they're both beautiful. I'm definitely in favor of it. I think I like number 1, the top one, a little bit better. That's my personal opinion, but I love it, peacock and all.
Trustee Caravas.
I vote the same as Trustee Miller. I like the top one better. Yeah. Yeah, as long as it's protected from coding, because as I mentioned last time we talked about this, unfortunately, as our society slowly de-evolves on things, just as things go full circle, I'd hate to see just someone pass through town that just doesn't care, does something to it. I'd also like to see us, as we've talked for many years, with more security cameras in our parks and things, that a camera sits on the corner to the northwest, just watching that whole side of the building in the little courtyard in and amongst itself, and then that wall also. So yeah, I'm for it.
Trustee Watt.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it as well, and I commend all those involved in making this project move forward.
Good. Can I ask you a question, Administrator Simonson?
Sure.
The $5,000 contribution from CEMEX, that can be used on this project, can it not?
No, they earmarked that for the Ute Trail
Oh,
sculpture.
for the base? Was that for the base?
But for that project, I don't know if it was for the base or for the sculpture, but
Okay.
yes, they earmarked it toward that.
Well, we'll find a way to get the rest of the money, no problem. You have the consensus of the board.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Believe me, thank you very much. Let's see, staff reports, financial update, Finance Director Eystone.
Thank you, Mayor. I will bring up my screen. It's definitely hard to believe that we're taking a look at December 31st financial updates, that's for sure. So this is a preliminary update. As you might recall, we do accrue back additional revenue and expenses related to 2021. Usually up towards the end of February is kind of our stopping point. So just keep in mind that none of these numbers in this presentation would be considered final by any means. Those should be available. At least we'll have a better feel for that into March, in our March meeting. So sales tax came in very well, again, for November sales. Those are still preliminary numbers, but we have a pretty good feel for what they look like. They are higher than any of our prior 3 years. So that's great. We're up approximately 31% from the same time last year, which equates to approximately $361,000. So that's great. So we'll see one additional month of sales tax revenue in this chart for 2021. And then I'll also note that the numbers in the financial documents that you received don't include that 127,000 that you see there. So we can expect to see in those final numbers essentially 2 more months worth of sales tax. So we aren't quite where we projected year end would be, but we're very close. So I anticipate we'll probably be at the very least $90,000 more than what we had projected for our budget. So that's great news. And then this is the same chart where we can look at our local versus non-local sales tax contributions. So for November sales, it's an estimate of 45% of those were deemed local. And then you might see and notice that that is a decent sized decrease from our prior months, but that's really attributed to, we had a pretty strong online, some of our more prominent online retailers had pretty strong sales, most likely due to, holidays and things like that. And then our summer months also include, our weddings and our festivals and things like that, which for the most part are deemed local as well. So still pretty strong there. And this is our yearly comparison that we look at every meeting. And one great thing that you can see here is that for year-to-date revenues and expenditures, all of our revenues exceeded the expenditures in every single fund so far. And I anticipate that will definitely be the case through our final numbers as well. So that's very good as well. And then our revenues to budget, our actual revenues received to what we budgeted are higher in all of our funds as well. The enterprise funds are really attributed a lot to the summit revenues that we received in November. So, that should be taken into account as well. And then just our general sales tax and strong camping revenues and parking revenues and things like that help definitely. Our year-to-date expenditures to where we had budgeted is lower so far in every fund as well. So another positive note that we can take into account. So with both of the revenues and expenditures, just remember, we're continuing to receive 2021 invoices, and then so those will be accrued back as we get those. We have received a couple of bigger ones in the general fund, so we likely will definitely be over where we projected year end would be for our expenditures, and we may cut our budget number pretty close as well. We've just got some larger ones that are kind of trickling in there, but we'll keep an eye on it. I'm not worried because our revenues again are so strong. We're not going to have any major issues by any means. And then just our basic attorney's fees through December. I believe there might be one or two invoices hanging out there that will be accrued back to 2021 as well. So we'll see that number increase a little bit. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Could we have our screen back?
You betcha.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our finance director, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, we talked before when we awarded the contract for the 4th Avenue Bridge project that at some point we would try to take a look at the final year-end revenue figures, including December sales taxes, and then the final year-end expenditures that you mentioned. Some invoices are still coming in. Do you know what might be a realistic date for us to take a look at that? Our meetings in February, I believe, are the 7th and I think it's the 22nd, because I think the 21st is a holiday. Would February 22nd be a realistic date to take a look at, see where we stand on those numbers?
Probably not in February because we wouldn't have closed the month of February yet, but I think we will have a pretty good feel for it in March. So if you'd like, closing can take a little bit of time, to get everything posted and stuff. So definitely by my finance update in March, we should definitely have a good feel for it. Now, nothing is ever, final until we get the audited numbers and things like that. But I feel like we would have a pretty good idea of what that's going to look like. And because we are, like I mentioned, over what we projected our expenditures to be, that's going to eat in a little bit of that. But on the flip side, we're also over in our revenue projections for sales tax, because I was a little bit conservative with that as well. So I do think that we'll have some to allocate. It's just a matter of how much.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions? Trustee Carrolls?
Thank you, Director Eystone, for the report. I just want on your slide when we talked about the Summit Housing money's coming in for the enterprise funds. When you go up to the roll up, which would be, I guess, electric funds in page 8, water, sewers 9, and I think those are the main ones at this point. Where does that additional money, does that show up in the charges for services? Because the reason I'm asking, as I'm looking at the year end, we are definitely higher by, gosh, what, approximately 215,000 in electric sales, water sales 575,000, sewer charges 340,000. Is that the Summit monies coming in?
Yes, I believe that they are in the charges for services. Give me one moment to peek at that.
Sure.
Yes, those are. And you can see they came in the month of November.
Yeah.
And so you can see those numbers really get, significantly higher in that month.
Is that, I just, as those of us that work on this, you see it every day. We as the board, staff sees it every day. But as people who are running for the board now, just general citizens, look at that. Accounting wise, I'm sure we're fine. The auditors are going to be fine with that sitting there. In the future, should we, I guess, as you go through, like I said, as a layperson going through and whipping through it, go, wow, we charge a lot for electricity. We're way up. Same with water. And as a UEB now is getting ready to review rates, someone could easily look at that and go, well, no, you don't, because we're way up. Is that the best place to put that, or the roll up really doesn't matter? That's more for us to internally keep control, just so I'm aware.
Yeah, it's so the way that the roll up works, it's how our accounts are categorized. When I go through the budget, for example, in that summary, we have a column that is one-time revenues and one-time expenses. And that is the exact type of place that you would want to put or categorize something like that for, because the last thing you want to do is continue to rely on these one-time revenues to fund ongoing expenditures, which I think is maybe sort of where you're kind of going with that. It's very important to only utilize one-time revenues to fund one-time expenditures such as capital purchases.
Correct. Okay.
So yeah.
I just want to make sure that for the roll-up, that's okay. But yeah, as long as we, and the other documents for budgeting for the next board and other people that want to look at it, they see, as long as we keep it that way, just as you just look at the roll-up, and someone looks at the roll-up only because it's the first couple of pages and they don't go all the way through, you can see that, we're charging a lot. We got plenty. We don't need rate increases or even a review. And that's definitely not the case. So, okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Finance Director Eystone. Excellent report as usual.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Utility update?
Hello, Mayor and trustees. So I started my report off this week with trying to go over some of the action items that were listed the last couple of meetings that we had. And so, excuse me, the first one, going over the lift station alarms concerns, just to point out again that as soon as we hear that the materials or the equipment needed is on its way, that's going to be scheduled to be worked on. The influent and effluent comparisons at the wastewater treatment plant. I'm having the UEB or one of the UEB is offered to put together some spreadsheets and see what we can do with that. So I'll see what else I have at the next meeting. And there were some questions on the utility shutdown in the case of an emergency. So we put those in there, the details that we could. And then for the process to underground all, I wasn't at the meeting when I heard when the actual question was submitted, but the planning to underground the town's electric system. So I am going to work with Line Electric, our contractor, to go over some plans and see what we can put together to have that done. And then I also included an update that the Riverbend PUD has submitted a stormwater report that the engineer and I are reviewing, and we'll get back with them and then proceed with getting that work done. Were there any questions on the action items or direction if I didn't get those correct?
Are there any questions?
I don't see any.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I had one about the figure on the wastewater treatment facility influent. You said it's about 1 million gallons a month. Sometimes with the utility reports, we would get attached charts that showed what percent of capacity that was. If I remember right, it was the most recent ones I saw were like somewhere in the, I don't know, 45 to 50% range. I'm talking about flow capacity, not load capacity. Is that still about where we are of, our rated capacity, and we're somewhere 50% or less on what we're processing now?
I'd have to look back at that. The 1 million gallons is how much water is actually used at the plant for the processing. That's not the fluid. That's not the influent.
The total influent. Okay.
Right. That's actually on top of we have the influent waste coming in, and then we're using 1 million gallons of water to treat that waste, is what I wanted to put out there.
Maybe this is going to be done in conjunction with a couple of the projects that are in the works and coming to us, Plant Bluegrass and the hotel, whatever. But if we could get kind of an update on where we stand on the flow capacity, and I guess the load capacity too, although the load factor, I think, got changed when we re-rated. So I think we're not bumping up against that limit anymore. But as part of those upcoming reviews, I'd sure like to know where we stand in terms of where we're rated on flow capacity and how much we're seeing each month. So thank you.
Yeah. You are welcome.
I'd like to add something to that. And that's addressing the basin situation, both the cost, when we may have to build it, whether we can build it in the same location, and what the timeline would be for that.
Okay. I believe we have an estimate on cost that I could get pretty quickly, and it may take some work to determine location with the floodplain there.
Okay. I mean, I think it's something that along with all of the things we're going to do in regard to complying with the re-rating, that we should address, as a board that knows that the problem may exist, and not just pass it on to another board. And I don't go there, so I'd really like some input in regard to that. Aaron, if you could provide us with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Noted. You're welcome. Any others? Don't see anyone. So then I went on just as an update on the capital improvement projects, the Longs Peak Drive project continuing on. One note on that after the finance review is, so we didn't get it all finished this year. A big chunk of that is the paving, say 300,000 or so. So that will have to do a budget adjustment to be in there for this year, since it will be spent this year. I believe we can verify that because the work is not done yet. So I believe that still needs to be in this year and not last year. But it's moving along. The first delay we've really come up with on that is the stormwater inlets. They're having trouble trying to see if they could get someone to do where you pour them in place rather than have them delivered. So we're still waiting on that. In the meantime, we hope to be able to have them start cleaning up their staging area and get that work done, because that's going to take some time also. The First Avenue waterline project, as was mentioned before, was finished, and the fire flows at the hydrants all passed. So that was in good shape with the fire department, and the sewer line project finished up, and that all does look to be in good shape. I did put some details together for at least one of the residents over there, who at first was a little confused with some of the work done, but afterwards seemed to be very happy with what we decided on and the reasoning behind that. And it looks like it should be a really good solution. And it came in slightly under budget, the two of those projects. So that's always good too. We are still waiting, as you know, from the special meeting for the Lyons Valley Townhomes to submit their public improvement security. I have not seen anything on that yet, and they are all aware now that they're not to do any more work. As advised, some of the grading was done there before they were notified, and that wasn't necessarily supposed to happen, but they're not doing anything at this point until we have that permit. A few others just to update that I didn't have in there, working on a credit card terminal for the bulk water. We are also, I just finished putting in the annual inventory we do every year with Cdot for our roads, for the roads funding. And at the end of the year, we did get about a third of the town's sewer system videoed, jetted and videoed. So I'm still waiting for the reports and the videos on that. And that's my report. Any additional questions?
Trustee Miller, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering about all that crack repair on the north side of town that they did when it was super cold out and wet. It was like raining that day. So they did a bunch of crack repair when it was wet and raining, and then left it to, you know, so it's just going to crack and, you know, get ruined again. Basically, it's going to have to be redone. Is that going to happen? Are you guys going to have them redo that as soon as it does, or?
We don't expect it to, but yeah, it is under warranty for a year. So if something were to happen, they would come repair it at no cost. It is the same company that did it the year before. And when I had reviewed them, that is more Director Cosgrove does a lot with the street side, but I was talking to them after that was done also. And so it was the same company as the year before. And in looking at those, they all looked good. I hadn't seen any issues this year from last year's. And the contractor said they're out working in Denver and other locations without any concerns in that type of weather. Again, we'll see after a year if it occurs. But again, having that warranty at least a year is helpful for that aspect. If it goes longer, then we can have more issues. But based on the job they did the previous year, it appears that it should be in good shape.
I have a couple of questions. The reclamation of the staging area on Longs Peak Drive. What's the schedule for that?
They don't have a solid schedule. They're finishing up the concrete work at this point. I was estimating about 2 weeks. Actually, they do have trucks starting tomorrow to come take away some of the concrete they've been piling up and then some of the other dirt there. That has to be worked in conjunction with the start of prepping the road at the top. But the goal is to have that done before all of the road prepping is in place. So we're also dependent on weather. The 2 weeks was the estimate of really getting that cleared out, then reworking the land, getting seeding down. Although I want to check if we want to wait till March, I believe, to get the seeding in. We want it early enough for the spring rains, but not to where it's going to really be in the frozen winter. So I need to review that.
Okay, my only concern was when you disturb the soil and in a situation like that, what happens is that if you're not careful and you wait too long, you really get a lot of weeds. So I would keep an eye on that and try to time that so that we're not fighting that. Then you mentioned that we would have to make a budget adjustment of $300,000. Is that due to a cost overrun, or is that due to not appropriating enough money originally to get the project done?
No, that's just moving it from, if the work wasn't done in 2021. So we haven't gotten an invoice for it yet. So when we get the invoice, I believe we're only putting in the 2021 for the invoices for the work that was done, even though it was planned and we had hoped to have it finished by the first of the year. So we just need to move that out of, say, 2021 and into 2022.
I got
No
you.
change in actual cost.
I got you. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Administrators report?
Thank you. We do want to let the board and the public know that we do have board and commission training scheduled for this Saturday morning from 10 a.m. till noon. And again, next Tuesday, the 25th, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. People only need to attend one session or the other, not both. We've had that question. We do plan to record it as well for those who can't make it. The Board of Trustees does not necessarily need to go, but we are encouraging board and commission members to attend. We also, after the board adopted the new employee handbook regulations, we've been working internally to get the staff trained and educated on those. And then you have to go through all of the updating now of benefits and policies and changes within the system. So we've been working on that. In the meantime, CIRSA, who is our insurance provider for property and casualty and workers' comp, has done their annual inspection of town facilities. Really want to thank staff who worked hard to get ready for that inspection. There were very minimal issues brought up. We were able to take care of them literally within a couple days. And so now all of our insurance policies have been renewed and updated for 2022. We specifically took a look at things like, our cyber insurance and some of the more unique situations that municipalities are needing to be aware of, as well as facilities, playgrounds, things like that. So had a nice annual inspection there, and all the policies are updated. Also want to remind the public that packets, if people are interested in running for mayor or trustees, are currently available from the town clerk's office, and they are due back no later than January 24th at 4:30. So we have sent out notices. Yeah, that's next Monday. We have been sending out notices on e-blast and utility bills, town website, social media. At this point, we do not have a full docket of, we've only had one person return their packet to date. So we have a ways to go on that. COVID update. I think we all know that positivity has really been surging over these past couple of weeks. Transmission levels remain high. Today, Department of Public Health for Boulder County said, they are the highest ever. They don't even have room on their graphs right now to document what they had before. We are seeing it actually internally amongst our organization as well. We have had more cases this past week than we did in all 2 years of the pandemic to date. So we are definitely feeling here at Town Hall. We have stepped up all of our protocols, following the new guidelines, have ordered a little higher quality masks for our staff, as well as received some of the rapid testing from the federal government for our essential workers. So we are definitely seeing a change there. Luckily, all the cases have been fairly mild. In the area of community relations and communications, do want to remind people, sometimes we forget this, that we have a revolving loan fund that's been very, very successful in our local community. And right now we have 7 loans that are out there, but being repaid on time. But the balance right now is $130,000 that's available to loan to folks. Usually those loans are in the $20,000 range, but the committee is willing to look at other options. So if we are hearing people needing or wanting to do some improvements or need assistance right now, we want to remind them that those funds are out there. We did have 2 people inquire about those over the last couple of weeks, so that's good. As we come to a close of the year end with the finances, parking revenues and the parking and the camping revenues were definitely well above where we've ever seen those. Do want to let the board know that the Bone Park kiosks have all been upgraded since we did have so much trouble with those over this past year and are currently operational. Unfortunately, we did have another graffiti incident this weekend at Bone Park. This time up against, I guess I'd call it the Northern Trail on the backside of the pump station building. And so we did have a little bit of that. It's been reported again. And Sergeant Christ is going to be checking the cameras to see if they picked up any unusual activity during the time frame we know it happened. We did have 2 people respond to our inquiry about camping, folks that were affected by the Marshall Fire. At this point, I don't think anyone has taken us up on that, but we have had a couple of inquiries. And then last but not least, we are trying to have some outdoor activities to help keep our community engaged and alive over the winter. We do have our Winter Wonderland concerts scheduled for January 22nd and February 13th, despite looking like we are not going to have an ice rink this year. We just are not seeing enough days in a row. And now it will be at the point that it will literally be up about 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll have to take it down. So it does not appear we're going to have that, but we're still going to try the concerts. And then we do have a special event with Old Man Winter Bike Race and Run that we've hosted for several years on February 6th. And then, believe it or not, we're already talking March and spring, and we have a 5K and 10K run that's asked to be hosted here in Lyons called the Lucky Lions 5K and 10K. So starting to get activities up and going again. Hard to believe. It doesn't feel like we've had much of winter, but already looking at spring. So, and then it looks like a significant amount of follow-up for our next meeting. So I've got all those things on the list, and we'll be sure to address those.
Any questions for Administrator Simonson? Seeing none, we'll move on. Legal update, Counselor.
Thank you, Mary Angela. I have a fairly lengthy report by my standards tonight. I'm going to start with the good news in the first couple items. So starting with the Freisig matter, in the last meeting, we were unsure whether the payment had been made. The last payment had been made, and I can confirm now that payment was made, and Mr. Freisig has paid all of his settlement monies. Pursuant to that, we did file a satisfaction judgment with the district court, and that case is thankfully finally closed. Next, I want to move on to the opioid settlement. You remember us signing on to a while back. I'm happy to report that all Colorado counties ended up signing on to that agreement, and 98% of the 200 and some Colorado municipalities also signed on to the opioid settlement, which means that the maximum amount of payout will be available to us. We don't know what that number is yet. It has to be calculated more or less by the state now that the final numbers are in. But we will provide an update as soon as those numbers come in. But it was a pretty monumental feat given the number of municipalities in Colorado, and especially the really tiny ones that aren't as synced into the goings-ons of the state, that we got as high as participation as we did. So great news there, and we'll give an update to the board once we know how much money we'll be eligible to receive, and start discussing, as we already have to some degree, the things we can do with that money. So there's that. Next, I want to discuss the Honeywell matter, a quick update on that one. This really is breaking news, so I don't have a ton of information to provide at this point, but Falance and Tetra Tech have filed a lawsuit in federal court, primarily against Honeywell, but the town is named as a party as well. contesting the arbitration and the ability of whether or not their subcontracts with Honeywell can be arbitrated. As I mentioned, this is a lawsuit against Honeywell and Honeywell's contract with Tetra Tech and Florence, but the town's necessary party as a third-party beneficiary of those contracts. This is somewhat interesting because you may remember that these parties have previously alleged that they could only be arbitrated. They're now kind of switching their position on that. This will delay the arbitration, some time while this issue is sorted out. The arbitration panel has already delayed all deadlines by a week, but we expect that once these lawsuits are served, they've not yet been served on Honeywell or Lyons, so we don't know what their contents are precisely. That is likely that the arbitration panel will delay even further. As I mentioned, this is mostly Honeywell's fight, as is their contract that's being disputed with Florence and Tetra Tech. However, the town will be, as a party, will be required to file an answer. Likely a limited answer saying us too with regarding to Honeywell's response, but it remains to be seen what the allegations in the lawsuit are. So we'll have more information as that becomes available to us. Any questions on that issue before we move on?
Can we get a copy of that when you get it? Could you forward it on to us?
Certainly. I said we haven't even seen what this lawsuit does. There's literally an email to the arbitration panel saying we filed a lawsuit, please stay everything. And so that's basically all the information we have at this point.
Hate to get technical, but federal jurisdiction based on what, diversity, or why would it be a federal issue?
I assume based on diversity, but that would seem to be a long shot as well. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what their theory is. As I said, we have not seen. Maybe, and I don't know this for sure, as I haven't read the subcontracts, but maybe Honeywell's Honeywell's contract say that the jurisdiction is appropriate in federal court. I don't know.
We'll see what it says when we get it. So, okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting though, from many perspectives.
Any other questions for Counselor?
And I do have a couple more
Continue,
matters.
sir. Go ahead, sir.
So the next one that is we'll take some time to discuss is the Yoda Matter. You may remember from our last meeting that we had a hearing on the nuisance abatement, the show cause hearing, and that the order of the hearing officer was due last week. That has come out at this point, and the decision really can be broken down into two parts. First, as you know, what is required under the show cause hearing requirements, a determination of whether a nuisance exists, and the order found unequivocally that the home constitutes a public nuisance and that it was basically unfit for human habitation. However, the order also contains a second part, which is a discussion of whether or not Ms. Yoder can possibly comply with the demands for abatement. And that part of the order says that it is impossible for Ms. Yoder to abate the property because it is in the floodplain. So the order says the town cannot abate the property because we have given Ms. Yoder an impossible task. Obviously, this is problematic. It goes beyond what we believe the authority of the hearing officer is, which is under the plain language of the Lyons Municipal Code, limited to whether or not a nuisance exists. And so right now we're left with basically no options if we were to continue with the hearing officer's order. So what we are proposing is appealing the hearing officer's order to municipal court as is available to us under the recent changes to the Lyons Municipal Code. And appealing in part, we would of course wholly support the finding of an unequivocal public nuisance, but we would request that the municipal court overturn the finding of impossibility to abate. We think it goes beyond the jurisdiction of the hearing officer. If we don't appeal this, then the town will be left with no other option but to appeal in district court, or the hearing officer will be the final decision on this, which means that the house will sit as it is perpetually until bought or remedied by somebody else. We wouldn't be able to enforce any requirements for abatement. And so it's a very disappointing decision and unexpected, because impossibility was not the subject of the hearing that was held. And so what we would request, after any questions you may have, is that direction from the board to file an appeal with municipal court as it is due next week, given the recent code changes saying that you have 14 days after the hearing officer's decision to appeal to municipal court.
Questions for Counselor? Mayor Pro Tem?
What evidence of impossibility to abate was presented besides whether the hearing officer had authority to decide that or not? That would be a strange set of evidence, because that place, there's been discussion since the flood, really, that the bottom floor could be sealed off and the top floor could be used. So I'm kind of curious what evidence he relied on, if anything.
The evidence that was relied upon based on the order, and I wasn't at the hearing, so I can't explain what all, but I know Ms. Yoder submitted numerous complaints about her inability to obtain a building permit as preventing her from abating the property. And I think it's undisputed that she can't get a building permit for a number of the things that can be fixed the way she wants to. But I think we all understand that there's other things that can be done that don't require a building permit that she can do. And so that seems to be a misunderstanding of the hearing officer in this situation. So, but I mean, Ms. Yoder put on a show that she doesn't think she can do anything because of the restriction of being unable to acquire a building permit due to the nature of the floodplain.
Yeah. No, I think that part of it has to be appealed. I can't imagine that being supported by adequate evidence.
Further questions or comments, Trustee Lowe?
The only question I have is, if it was judged not fit for human habitation, yet she continues to live there on occasion, what recourse does the town have at that point?
It's a good question, kind of given the unique nature of the order. If it were to stand, I mean, I have not fully evaluated what the town's options would be. I mean, maybe a code violation, not a nuisance violation, but another type of violation, health and safety violation potentially. And the town's, I guess, only recourse would be to condemn the property if we weren't able to abate the property, which of course is a much more expensive process. But I mean, the hope is that, you know, we appeal this, that we overturn the part about being unable to abate, and that either Ms. Yoder, the town, or most likely the bank finally steps in. It poses an interesting problem for the bank too, because they now have a property which is worthless, it can't be lived in, and the town can't abate it. So maybe the hope is too that maybe the bank, who has previously shown that they may be willing to step in and fix the issues, will do so if this proceeds in municipal court.
Is the mortgage holder apprised of this decision?
Yes, they've already been in contact with the town and saying that they might step in and fix the issues.
Okay.
The mortgage holder was actually at the hearing. They listened to the whole thing.
Further comments? Well, I agree that we should appeal. I don't think we have any choice. Trustee Lowe?
No, I'm good.
Trustee Caravas?
Are you asking?
Whether we should appeal?
Absolutely.
Trustee
Is there anything we can do, Mr. Mayor, if we find her staying in the house to start issuing leveling fines based on our LMC?
That's a question for Counselor more than it is for me.
I don't know the specific violations, but I'm sure we can find something.
Trustee Waugh, how do you feel?
Fully support an appeal. This needs to be resolved.
Okay, Counselor. You have a unanimous decision by the Board of Trustees.
Thank you for that direction. So I have a couple more items. I said this would be a lengthy one by my standards.
Go ahead.
I wanted to address the Keith Bell issue. I think we last discussed this at the last meeting, that the title did come back clean, which is a good thing because it makes it much easier and cheaper to finally resolve this. And so what we need to do at this point is draft a special warranty, which we can do in-house, given the title work came back less complex than was expected, given kind of the unique nature of this property. So we can certainly do that, and we are prepared to do that fairly soon. However, I think as we're all aware, due to the busy schedule of full slate development review issues right now, we just haven't gotten to it. And so I wanted to make a promise to Trustee Lowell that this will be resolved by the end of the term. So long as, knock on wood, Mr. Bell has no issues with signing it. In the terms of work that what the town needs to do to get this to the finish line is a small amount of work. But we need Mr. Bell to sign it, of course, without issue. So I'm committing to you by the end of the term, it will be resolved so long as Mr. Bell signs. So given that all the due diligence has been done now to figure out what happened to the old deed and what the existing state of the title work is. So finally, also for Trustee Lowell, I have not totally forgotten about the annual report. Just simply have not had the bandwidth given kind of the demands of the past couple of weeks. So I'm making a commitment to you to get back by the end of the week. I'll find some time, maybe sometime around 11 and midnight some night to get that done for you.
Yeah, but if it's between 11 and midnight, would it interrupt this meeting?
Oh, it could. I wasn't promising tonight, so. And so that's all I have, unless there's any additional questions for me.
Any additional questions for Counselor? Seeing none, could you please read the next item into the record, Madam Clerk?
Yes, the next item is the second reading of public hearing on Ordinance 1112, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, amending Chapter 16, Article 6 of the Lyons Municipal Code, updating commercial and mixed-use design guidelines. This is to be open and continued to a date certain.
And do we need a motion to do that? Is that how we proceed, Counselor?
It's a second reading, so if there's any public comment, we'll have to open that first, then a
Okay.
motion second.
All right, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
It is a second reading, so I'll open the public hearing. Are there any comments that the public wishes to make at this time? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion to continue to a date certain. Unless there are any comments.
I guess we.
Go ahead.
Because we didn't have time, we didn't do a staff report. I'm not sure what that date certain is. I think, Victoria, do you know what that date certain that staff is requesting?
They are actually requesting, Planning Commission and staff are requesting, this goes out till March 7th. They apparently have recently had interest and want to be very thorough. Doesn't have to be that late, but that's what they're recommending if indeed the board wants as much public input on this as possible.
Okay, now that we know that, are there any further questions by the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move
Pro Tem?
you. Do we need to close the public hearing, Brandon, first?
We already did.
Mary Angela did gavel out the public meeting.
I move we continue the second reading on ordinance 1112 until the March 7th meeting.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second as stated. Any further comments? If not, I'll call for the vote.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Miller,
Yay.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
and Trustee Caravas.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. The second reading of ordinance 1112 is continued to March 7th, 2022. Could you please read the next item into the record, Madam Clerk?
Yes, item 2 is the second reading of public hearing on ordinance 1113, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, amending Chapter 16, Article 17 of the Lyons Municipal Code, updating the site plan and development plan review process. This is also to open and continue to a date certain.
Do we have any questions? I don't assume we do. I'll open the public hearing for any comment by the public. Are there any? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we continue the public hearing on ordinance 1113 until our March 7th meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
No further comments or questions? I'll call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
and Trustee Candace.
Aye.
Ordinance 1113 is continued till March 7th, 2022 as well. Could you please read the next item into the record, Madam Clerk?
Yes, the next item is a second reading, public hearing on ordinance 1117, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving a lease of town property to Raul Vasquez.
Do we have a staff report?
Yes, sir. At your last meeting, we introduced that Raul Vasquez would like to renew his lease for the 2 tracts of land at 4168 Ute. Is that correct? I believe so. And he would like to renew those for another 3-year term. The board approved us to move forward with going to a second reading on that. There was a request by Trustee Watt to see if there had been any recent review of the lease rate. So I did do a little research on that. It was really difficult to find information that was applicable, but I do have a little bit to contribute to that. So basically tonight would be the second reading of that and whether or not the board wants to move forward with the lease rate as is, or if you want to carry this forward to a date certain and review that. But the information, I did put some information in your packet. I contacted Boulder County to see what they do about leasing space. They currently only lease some office space to a few commercial businesses, and they lease some Boulder County Parks and Open Space leases some ag land. Neither of those were very applicable. They said they could get me more information, but not in the time frame we had to get the packet out. But I also went ahead and just did a Google search to see what's available in Boulder County for lease of vacant land to try to see if there's anything similar at all. There were only 8 listings on the site. Most of them were associated with comprehensive development plans, like industrial sites. Like in Longmont, it was around just north of the Home Depot, west of the fairgrounds. There's some in some of the larger urban areas, but all of them were planned to be zoned commercial. They had utilities to them, pretty different than what our situation is. But the range in those lease agreements was anywhere from 50 cents per square foot per year to $7.95 per square foot per year, depending on if they were located on major transportation areas, stoplights, what their access was from highways, etc. So I really did not find a good comparison. The only other one I found was Bureau of Land Management. I included their per acre rent schedule. I made a call to the office. I did not hear back from them. I wanted to understand it better. I didn't think that was very clear. If that is, from what I could get on the site, it's for people to lease for mineral and gas extraction. So again, it's a very different use, but I did not get a call back as in time. So the one thing I did note in looking at this a little further was that this lease has been renewed numerous times. This is the 4th time in recent history. And 2 of those leases did include a clause for the rate to go up by the Consumer Price Index each year. And then the last lease did not have that clause in it, nor does this one. So that is an option that could be considered as well. So that's my background. I guess it's up to the board if you want to talk about this further or want to move forward as is, or if you want to change it in another fashion. The other item in the lease that we talked about a little bit was this 10 most southerly feet for the trail. In talking with Mr. Vasquez, he is very workable with us. He understands the desire to, want to avoid removing trees and things where we don't need to. And so I did send the language to him regarding not using more than 15 feet during construction, but ending with a final 10 foot, depending on a location that we were both satisfied with. So that's my update on this ordinance. You're on mute, Mayor.
Are there any questions?
Attorney Dittman has his hand raised, sir.
Yes, Attorney Dittman.
Administrator Simonson, concerning the language that we had previously discussed, that you just mentioned, I don't think we ever discussed whether or not Mr. Vasquez agreed to that language. And then
I sent it to him and I left it for him. I talked with his administrative person. She said she'd get it to him. I did not hear back, but in talking to him just verbally, he said he'd be fine to work with us on what we needed.
so I guess my follow-up to that, would you be recommending an amendment along those lines?
In regard to the trail or in regard to the lease amount?
With regard to the trail, the 15 feet during construction and 10 feet.
I think the verbiage is fine. I think we would have heard otherwise, but maybe we'll hear something during the public hearing. I see there's a representative on the.
Can I ask one question? It says that that he would have to remove any buildings that exist. Are there any buildings that he would have to remove?
That has always been a situation as we've talked about the trail. And yes, depending on the different alignments, there is actually a building there that could have to be removed. But we have alignments that don't require it as well.
Okay. All right. Any further questions? Trustee Wah.
Aren't we going to open it to a public hearing?
We are.
Okay.
We are.
Do we do questions or do we do comments?
We do questions.
Okay.
Then we'll open the public hearing, make a motion, and then have comments. Is that correct, Counselor?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is there any record, and I should have looked this up myself, but is there any record why the CPI adjustment was removed from the last lease agreement?
I don't. I was trying to take a look if that was a difference in the two attorneys that reviewed it potentially. I'm not really, I do not know why that changed at some point. But that's what I'm saying. If that's something the board wants us to put back in, that could be an amendment to this.
Do we have an amount that would be even?
The CPI index?
Yeah.
Well, we do track that every year. The finance director does keep an eye on it. It does change depending on, what month you're looking at it as well. I just heard on the news that if they were to do it correctly, it would be like 7.9% this past year.
Okay.
But the CPI that was used for our budgeting purposes at the time we did that was 3.5%.
I'm just wondering that if we incorporated it into the new lease, what the impact would be. That's all I want to know. Attorney Dittman.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that too. I didn't know that had come out. It's certainly not a decision we had recommended. We actually recommend what we call escalator clauses in leases usually. I think that was pretty soon after I had joined the town. I think it's just whatever draft was presented to me. But it's certainly the board's decision and not something I would object to legally, as is something we usually include in leases.
Any further questions? Mayor Pro Tem.
When was the last time that the Spirit Hounds lease was renewed?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can tell you that it has lapsed. It's currently not, we are going month by month at this point.
Yeah, I seem to remember that coming through. I don't think we increased their rent the last time that we renewed it.
It's due for renewal.
Okay. You remember the last time it came through? I guess it must have been over a year ago, whether there was an increase in the rent.
They should have been written very similarly. I don't know if
What I thought.
I can look it up while we're talking.
Yeah, I don't think they came up at the same time. They were both renewed at the same time. So I think their rates were the same, I think. But I can tell you here in a second.
Yeah.
All three of the leases that were in place, for the exception of Clark's Hardware, were the same amount of the $3,300 per tract per year, except for Clark's, who pays $100 for the tract for the whole year.
Yeah.
Dolores, do you recall why that was taken out at all? It just
I
as
don't.
clerk?
I caught that when I pulled all the leases for you to review, and I said,
Yeah, that's when it was caught. So I don't know if it could have been between attorneys, because the first one was 13 to 16 had it in it, 16 to 19 did. But the last one did not.
Clark's is a long-term flat rate lease. We did a fairly long-term, very low rates for Tank Hill to the cable company. So, okay, my recollection is we've always treated this basically the same rate, similar properties nearby with Spirit Hounds. So I think we ought to do with the other, but okay.
Any further questions? If not, I'll open the public hearing for comments. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to comment on this matter? Madam Clerk?
no, sir, I don't see anyone with their
Thank you
hand.
very much. I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that we approve the ordinance 1116. Oh, no, excuse me, 1117, approving a lease of town property to Raul Vasquez.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have 2 seconds. Are there any other further comments? Trustee Watt.
So I'd just like to say, I agree that it should be fair and consistent, but at the same time, I think we have different timeframes. And if we continue that, then the rates will never go up, because we'll just continue to charge $3,300 because that's what we charge everybody else. So I think it's absolutely necessary for us to put the CPI in there. As someone who rents or leases commercial land in the town of Lyons, personally, I pay almost 5 times this amount for 3 acres that I lease from Lyons Properties. So I can say that, this is definitely not market rate, but I know the properties are significantly different in terms of what they have. So I'm not here to penalize Mr. Vasquez. I think that we should go with the 3,300 for this year per lot. And I think we should add the CPI. But I also think it's our responsibility as landholders in Boulder County to understand the value of the land that we are leasing. So as I said, I pay 5 times this amount per acre, and that is a commercial rate. I think this is more than fair. I just think that we need to build in protections. And yes, the consumer price index is probably going to be 7 or 8% this year. And that is a reality of economics, and it is a reality of the value of property and the value of rent in Boulder County. And as someone who's supposed to advocate for this town, I have always said that we own way too much land and we don't get what fair market for it. And I think that this is very important for us to be able to, and all of our leases need to have the CPI escalator in it. So I would like to make an amendment to go back to add the wording from Ordinance 926, the 2013 to 2016 lease, that it would increase based on the Denver Boulder Consumer Price Index not to exceed 10% per year.
Do we have a second to that amendment?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to that amendment. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll vote on the amendment.
Mayor Angelo,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Carabas,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
and Trustee Miller. I think she's left. I'll just make a note that she did not vote.
The amendment carries. The CPI will be included as Trustee Waugh stated. Now we will vote on Ordinance 1117 as amended. Is that correct, Counselor?
Are there any further amendments, including?
Oh, excuse me. Are there any further amendments? Mayor Pro Tem.
I would move that we also direct staff to add in the language that has been proposed on adjusting for trail location, if that's an adequate description.
What was the last part of that?
Just that the language that's been proposed regarding, I guess it's cooperation on location of the trail extension being also included in the lease.
And for everyone's sake, that's 15 feet during construction and 10 feet final at a mutually agreed location.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Waugh that if we include the CPI index in this lease, we should make that a policy and treat everybody uniform so that if other leases come up for renewal in the future, they should have the same clause in them. I mean, you can't do anything about the Clark's lease that was done 30 years ago, but any other property that we should decide at least should have similar clauses in it.
Counselor?
I think Administrator Simonson had her hand up.
Administrator Simonson.
It's already changed in the proposed lease. I did that after our last discussion.
Well,
So on item 1. I gotta find it again. Oh,
Okay.
1.3.
That's
The
what I thought.
leaseor shall have the right to use and improve 10 feet of the property for a multimodal trail and bicycle path at their discretion. Leasee agrees that the leaseor may use more than 10 feet during construction and they shall not interfere or prevent its use. So that's already in the document.
Is that acceptable, Mayor Pro Tem?
I think that moots my amendment. So
I don't think the Board of Trustees approved that language, though, did they? I mean, I'm trying
That's
to.
what's proposed in front of them tonight.
It is proposed in front of us right now.
that language satisfies the intent of my amendment.
Excellent. Excellent. So do we have any further amendments? If not, I'll call for the vote on Ordinance 1117 as amended.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Carabas,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Ordinance 1117 carries unanimously. Please read the next item into the record, Madam Clerk.
Yes, the next item is the second reading, a public hearing on Ordinance 1116, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, approving an amendment to a contract to buy and sell real estate with Lyons Jude Highway LLC for Lot 1 of the Railroad Subdivision.
Staff report, Counselor.
Thank you, Mayor Angelo. So the board may remember that this was a request of Mr. Tamburello to remove the requirement from the buy and sell contract to file a PUD within 1 year. Because of various delays due to COVID, that has not been possible. Mr. Tamburello presented his request to the board, I believe in early December, which the board approved conceptually. This was brought back for first reading, the last being in December, and it was inadvertently left off the first meeting in January. So we're here for the second reading to amend the buy and sell to remove the PUD requirement as directed by the board.
Are there any questions? If not, I'll open the public hearing on 1116 to entertain any comments by the public. Madam Clerk, help me out.
No, sir, the crowd's getting less.
Okay.
Speakers.
All right. I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move the adoption of ordinance 1116, approving an amendment to the contract with Lyons Ute Highway LLC.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Caravas,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Ordinance 1116 passes unanimously on second reading. Before we get into the consent agenda, is everybody okay with taking a 5-minute break? Get back at 5 after 9. Is that okay? All right. Trustee Lowell, I'll get you what I owe you on the report very shortly.
Okay, I know where you live.
But I don't go anywhere on Saturdays unless it's to my grandson's basketball games.
All right. Well, you're more than excuse for that, for sure. We are, you're like this. My oldest son, his entire family has COVID, and today was the day they were supposed to pick up their new puppy.
Oh, boy.
So guess who has an 8-week-old golden lab here?
They're so beautiful.
Oh,
They are the greatest dogs.
Yeah, and I'm looking at about 3 hours of sleep tonight, I think. And the next night, and the night after that. No, she's a cutie though.
One, two, three, four, five. We'll wait for Trustee Carrolls and then we'll continue.
How long do you want to wait? I'm just kidding.
Okay, Madam Clerk, could you please read the consent agenda into the record?
Yes, consent agenda item 1 is resolution 2022-4, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the construction agreement for the GoCo Black Bear Hole and Second Avenue Trailhead Improvements Project with NICX. Item 2 is resolution 2022-6, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, ratifying the Fifth Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement for design services with Anderson Consulting Engineers Incorporated for the Stormwater Improvements Project. Item 3 is resolution 2022-7, resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, appointing 1 new member to the Board of Directors of the Lyons Regional Library District. Item 4, the January accounts payable. Item 5 are the January 3rd, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting minutes. And item 6 are the January 6th, 2022 Special Board of Trustees meeting minutes.
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any items that any of the trustees or mayor would like to remove from the consent agenda? I have one just for the sake of a comment, and that's number 3. If there are no others, I'll call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Carrolls,
Aye.
and Trustee Waugh.
Aye.
I just wanted to compliment Gil Sparks. He is now on either 3 committees or boards. His wife is also on a board, and I just want to compliment Gil and his wife for their commitment to the town of Lyons. Thank you very much, sir. And now move to approve our resolution 2022-7. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds, Gil. Call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Carrolls,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
Trustee Lowell.
Aye.
Resolution 2022-7 is approved as well. Could you please read the next item into the record, Madam Clerk?
The next item under general business is resolution 2022-8, a resolution of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the Third Amendment to the Carroll Agreement.
Staff,
Hello, Mayor and trustees. So we do have the third amendment to the Carroll or the Bradford Homestead Covenant and Agreement, as it is officially called, that had been discussed once before with some initial thoughts on what would go into that agreement. And so I've gotten the signed agreement, the agreement signed by the Carrolls to present. Again, this is an agreement that would allow a solar facility and battery storage to go into Bone Park to the southwest of the bike dirt jump park, if the trustees decided that's where they wanted it to go. So in that agreement, the only real change from when it was initially presented with the ideas of what should go in there was to the height restriction of 9 feet, but that was reviewed by the UEB for its technical concerns, and they were okay with that. I did have one question I wanted to ask on it now that I've read through, and I saw that it was mentioned before. It was more of a legal question, but I can wait until the discussion point on that. You're muted, Mayor.
You can ask it now.
Is the agreement as it's worded still okay if it was decided not to put the solar facility there? Or if something came up that would not allow it? I did want to make sure, based on the wording, that the town doesn't have to do any of the items unless we do the facility.
Yeah, so the way the agreement reads is that the town may construct, use, maintain, and shall permit the use of a non-light solar. It doesn't require us to build it.
That's what I thought, but wanted to verify.
Continue.
So the agreement is presented. If there are any discussion or questions on the agreement, I could read through. There are the 6 items that would be put into the agreement, the 6 items that would amend the agreement as it currently exists. Or if everyone is familiar with those, then I don't need to read them in one by one.
Why don't you read them into the record?
The system shall be designed such that its height shall not exceed 9 feet. No trees shall be removed from the area shown in Exhibit A or from the adjacent berms to the south. The fence surrounding the solar energy generation and storage system shall be of an agricultural style similar to that depicted in Exhibit B. Public access shall be prohibited to the area south of the solar energy and generation storage system. The town agrees to prohibit such access by installing a locking gate between the west side of the solar facility and the property fence to the west, with the exact location of the gate to be determined during the design of this facility upon mutual agreement of the parties. The town agrees that permanent no trespassing sound signs shall be posted at the northwest and southwest corners of the facility, exact locations to be determined during the design of the facility upon mutual agreement of the parties. And due to the safety considerations in the event of an emergency, the position of the system and system fencing shall not impede ingress or egress by a passenger vehicle from the Carroll property into Bone Park in the area located between the 2 existing berms.
Thank you.
The amendments.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Trustee Carrolls, you're the UEB liaison. The UEB is totally satisfied with this development and this contract and the 9 feet, and everything's acceptable to the UEB?
My understanding is yes.
Good. That's very important. Thank you, sir. No further questions? I'll entertain a motion. Mayor Pro Tem?
I move the adoption of resolution 2022-8, approving a third amendment to the Bradford Homestead lease.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, this is the third amendment to the agreement with the Carrolls. And I just want to say, each time that situations have come up where the relationship between the town and the Carrolls needed to be modified in some respect, that I've always found the Carrolls to be very reasonable. They have protections they want for their property. They run, I think, like a bed and breakfast there and everything. And it's understandable that they don't want uncontrolled activities right across the fence from them. And that's why they got this agreement. But every time the town has come to them and needed for various reasons to try to modify it, they have been what I consider to be extremely reasonable. I think they are good neighbors to the town, and I appreciate their reasonableness and willingness to work with the town, because they would have the legal right to just say no, but instead they've been good neighbors, and that's appreciated. So I'm in support of this.
Further comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Travis,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
Trustee Lowell.
Aye.
Resolution 2022-8 passes unanimously. Here we go. Excellent. Read the next item into the record, please, Madam Clerk.
The next item is discussion and direction to staff on utility issues.
That would be me again.
Director
And there-
Kaplan, take it away.
a few items that have come up. Okay, making sure I wasn't muted since I wasn't looking at the screen. During Longmont's raw water line project, right over at the corner of 4th and Park, I believe I mentioned it at a meeting a couple meetings ago. There is a location where their water line runs along Park Drive. We have storm sewer that runs down 4th Avenue. The storm sewer basically pipe just stops. Longmont's water line goes through in front of it, and then the storm water line starts again on the other side. So at some point in the past, there was some strange repair done. They threw some flagstone down on the bottom, put a piece of plywood over the top with some concrete and called it good. I don't know who or when, how, but that's what was done. That's not going to be acceptable to CDPHE in any way to have the stormwater there. So we needed to work out a way to get that resolved. Longmont has offered their contractor to do the work at a cost to the town. And we did have our engineer review and come up with a solution. And Longmont would like their contractor to do the work because they've already been working with them. They're familiar with their water line and how to work around it, and they're in the area. The big question, I think, was on the cost. It's not a project directly from the town, but Longmont would like to have the invoice from their contractor sent to the town. It's a contractor that they've gone through their procurement policy for and approved. So I wanted to verify that would not run into any problems, or to make sure you were aware of it if you saw this in the invoicing, what it was for, because we didn't go out for the bids for that, again, because it was not our project, but making sure that was okay, and that we were okay with using the $19,000 is what it would cost. And so that would come out of the stormwater. We may have to adjust what we do with the stormwater fund. We were planning to try to do some design work. It is possible that this could also come out of the ARP funding, but I'm not as familiar with using that for stormwater as we would be for water and wastewater. I would have to verify that. So are we okay with using the funding from stormwater and with allowing Longmont to have their contractor send us the invoice to get this taken care of in a timely fashion. You're muted, Mayor.
How does the board feel, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, obviously this needs to be done, and the stormwater fund this is classic use of the stormwater fund for things just like this. It's a stormwater project. So yes, I'm in favor of it.
Trustee Lowell,
Yes, definitely.
Trustee Miller. Trustee Caravas,
Yes.
Trustee Waugh.
Yes, yes.
Good. It's obvious. Director Kaplan, you have your unanimous decision of the board.
Thank you. Another project with Longmont is the removal of the water lines in the St. Vrain Creek along Apple Valley. When we did our work, Longmont also replaced water lines in Apple Valley, and both they and the town did have to sign an agreement with Boulder County as part of the permitting that we would remove the water line sections that are in the St. Vrain Creek. Longmont offered to, it's in two places, two separate sections that the pipe runs under the creek. Longmont offered to remove one of ours because it's basically almost underneath their pipe. The concrete encasement for them are together. It would be more work. So they were already going to remove that at no cost to the town as part of their project. The second section, the more eastern portion of the pipe, is further away and not in their actual construction limits. They have been talking with residents out there though, and after discussions amongst themselves and the residents, they did want to come back and offer a cost sharing option to share the cost of the project, and they would then include our water line with theirs. There was an estimate of around 30,000 thrown out that the town would have to spend. Again, this was an agreement that I think was 2020. So by 2025 is when we've told Boulder County we would have this out. We can wait on that section. This would seem a good use of funds in that we are saving mobilization. The contractor, again, will already be out there. So I wanted to check and see if that was something I should pursue. This is one that I believe we could use the ARP funding for. Originally during budgeting, we had planned to use some of the ARP funding is set aside for the Lyons Valley Townhomes. That's the name of the project for Summit Housing. And then the remaining amount was going to be used for the wastewater re-rating. So it would potentially be using it for something we know we have to do right now. And then we would have to make sure we have the funding for the re-rating still in the wastewater fund.
One important other thing to note from staffing is that Longmont is already doing the permitting that's required through Boulder County, which is somewhat significant when you're in the river. So knowing they're willing to do that piece as part of their project is also saving time and money for the town.
So what is your position in regard to using the ARP funding for this project, Administrator Simonson?
I think it will probably be eligible. You know, they're pretty open if it's water and wastewater infrastructure. And if it comes in at the lower end, especially 30,000, this is something we would have had to budget for over the next 4 years anyway. It's just really the timing that came up because Longmont decided to remove theirs now. Otherwise, we would have probably asked to budget for it.
Are there any further questions of either Director Kaplan or Administrator Simonson, Mayor Pro Tem?
If we take 30,000 and maybe a little more away from the re-rating expenses for the wastewater treatment plant, and we spend it on this, and I agree we need to do this. It makes sense to do it now. Are we still above the 3-month reserve in the water wastewater fund? I don't remember the overage we had in that after the Summit money came in.
Let me
think-
see.
cutting it pretty close in that fund, but
I know, yeah, we're cutting it close, but it's also, we have a little time to try to absorb it in other ways.
And I was waiting, I've not seen the final numbers after we made all the adjustments to budgeting, like the what changes that we did say were not originally in there. So I would have to double check.
So you mean to tell me that with the influx of money from the Summit project in regard to sewer and water contributions, that we're still struggling to meet a 3-month reserve?
Oh, that was in, yes, that money was included in the budgeting and planned for. Yes, that was my biggest concern and kept me up at nights, not knowing that that was not paid.
We're actually 100, well, at the time we did our budget, we were $145,000 short of our 3 months.
I thought the final projections that we were going to meet the 3-month reserve, but have not very much above that. I thought that was the most recent projection.
Well, yeah, no, I think that was with the budget, and then Summit did come in, but that's in, but we didn't want to count it when we did our budgeting.
Right.
Remember, we didn't want to count on it.
Right. And then I think Finance Director Eystone eventually reported it to us that with the Summit money received, we were above the 3-month reserve in all of our funds, but it wasn't very much in this fund. And I couldn't remember the overage, but like you say, there is some time.
There is some time. And we also have that set aside for Summit we might not use.
Well, that's contractually, we agreed with Summit to make that available. So it could be reduced slightly depending on what inflation and prices and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think we can count on that. So, but so, okay. I just wanted to, that was my recollection that we had some small amount above the 3-month reserve. And I guess we have the rest of the year to figure out how to make up that difference if it looks like we're going to be short. So.
And, DOLA regularly comes to us and, do you have a need?
Oh, yeah.
You can always find a need.
Right.
Like
We could say we're not going to do the PRV2. We had budgeted money to do work the next round of PRV, which we do want to do and need to get done also. But
what
it's
about
one
that
we put
card
off
reader?
until we get funding.
We just got 42,000 on the card reader.
I was going to ask about that. Have we already committed that 42,000 to the card reader? It's already
Today we tied it up with DOLA today.
okay.
They put the money in the bank.
Okay.
So see what you can do in regard to any kind of grant possibilities, Administrator Simonson. I know it's your expertise. While Longmont's here, willing to do it, all the permits have been gotten, so it won't cost us any extra. Let's try to get it done.
Right. This is one they're getting ready to go out. So we want to commit to this one and work on the funding for, say, the PRV if we needed to find something else to.
And who knows, if we wait 4 more years, it'll probably cost another third more as well. Plus the permitting time. Yeah.
No, I think since they're mobilized and ready to go, that it's incumbent upon us to figure out how to do it as soon as possible.
Well, as Director Kaplan said, we're so early in the year. We can either try to locate grant funds, figure out this ARPA, or put another project on hold if we have to by the end of the year.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have anything to say?
I agree. It makes sense to do it now, get it done.
Okay, I think so too. All right.
And
anything else, sir?
Yep, the final one was to look towards sort of direction for the solar and battery storage facility. Since we have the agreement now signed by the Carrolls, can be signed tomorrow by you, Mr. Mayor. And we do have the grant fund. Well, we do have the offer of a grant for $1 million from DOLA. I was waiting to make sure everything else was in place, but we do have that offer of a grant if the town decides to accept that. That would be dependent on accepting. Yes, it would not be dependent, but once we start on that contract, we do want to know where we're going to place the actual facility. So we have the approval of the public from the vote for the facility. We have the agreement in place with the covenant and agreement that had concerns about what could be done at the property. We have the grant award offer. We would need to see if the board wants to move forward with the location at Bone Park. We do need to amend the zoning to allow that use of a solar facility. So I was going to see if there was direction for me to go ahead and move forward with putting together that ordinance. Attorney
Dittman.
Yeah, I just want to expand a bit on what that ordinance looks like. So as Director Kaplan said, we have all the necessary public approvals already done, but there's still nowhere in the POS zoning where it says that a solar facility is a permitted or conditional use. And so what we would be asking for is a text amendment to the POS zone to allow for solar generation and battery backup storage facility as a conditional use, with the public vote satisfying that conditional use approval. And it's kind of a unique situation. I went through this with CML, and this was the recommended pathway, because just the voter approval itself did not satisfy the list of permitted or uses, or the list of uses generally, whether it be permitted or conditional.
Did we want to have any discussion about alternative sites? Administrator Simonson?
Well, as you know, before this, we got this far down the road, we had the feasibility study that looked at several different sites. Personally, DOLA wants to know sooner than later if we want to accept the grant. We don't have to declare where tomorrow, but it will be the next step. So in that time, we need to see if the zoning text amendment passes. I mean, I don't want to presume that you guys want solar facilities in all our parks, but we have to get through that first. But DOLA is asking Aaron, they are asking Aaron and I whether or not we want to accept the grant, whether or not it's at the site. So that's the first thing we need to do tonight. And then we do have it on February 7th, if you want to, for the UEB to come back and do a solar update if you want that. But if all of you know that you're definitely wanted at this location, then we need direction to start the zoning text amendment. And we'll tell DOLA we would like to take them up on their grant.
Are there any other additional questions? Trustee Caravas.
Attorney Dittman, I just want to clarify that the way CML suggests we write this is that it would pertain, because we took a vote on this particular solar field for this particular location, that the zoning code indicates that for each public or each public space or park, it needs to go to a vote of the people, basically, is what they're saying.
No, a conditional use review.
Conditional use review, thank you.
But in the condition of that approval would be a vote of the people.
A vote of the people, that's right, yes. That is how I would run, because my notes indicated before I heard your statement I wouldn't support an ordinance change for blanket zoning code changes for all parks, all open space. We've got some small areas, and someone 10, 20 years from now tries to squeeze in something next to a bunch of neighbors, you're gonna have a legal fight. And yeah, if it's stated that way, I could support that. This is basically what this change will do, even though we're changing the whole code. It's basically be specific for this location based on the way you're writing this, or CML suggesting you write this.
Yeah. Based on the facts of this case, it'd be a conditional use in all parks, but in order to satisfy the condition of that use, you need a vote pursuant to the other zoning restriction. Okay. So it would just say, if you look at it right now, there's a list of conditional uses permitted. Conditional use in the POS zoning shall be as follows. We'll just add at number 21, solar facility, but when it would ever go to conditional use review in the future, it would need that vote.
Okay.
Trustee Lowell.
I'm a bit confused here. I thought we took a vote that there's on the Lyons Municipal Code, it says that any alternative use of open space or parks, whether zoned or unzoned, requires a vote of the residents, a majority vote of the residents. Why do we have to change the overall zoning of all parks and recs to allow a solar farm? Wouldn't it just be this particular 1 acre?
I mean, it would be, and as Trustee Carrolls and I just discussed, that's the effect of this. It would just be for this one park, because all those other parks wouldn't have satisfied the condition of having gone to the voter approval. The problem is, as it exists now currently, is that you have a conflict between the vote and what the zoning code says. And we discussed this when we decided on the ballot questions in some length, that there would need to be a future zoning amendment, a text change just to allow this as a conditional use. Because right now there's a conflict between proposed use and the list of conditional uses. Technically, you could say that the vote was self-executing and that it changed the list of conditional uses. But that's a risky proposition because there is a very direct conflict. And so if any future owners of the Bradford property, for example, wanted to say, we may have amended the covenants to allow for this, but you're in violation of the zoning, they'd have a pretty good argument that it is indeed in violation of the zoning, just for consistent with the list of conditional uses, not with the voting requirement. There's really 2 requirements that we have to satisfy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, but I think back to the origin of the change to the municipal code, which was when there was going to be housing erected in Bohm Park. So at that point, there was a vote to not do it. Then there was a subsequent vote to insert it into the Lyons Municipal Code. And if you want to do that, something that's in opposition to the parks and open space zoning, you had to have a vote. So had the housing been approved in Bohm Park, would that then say that we could have housing in Laverne Johnson Park?
It would still have to have a change of the text to allow for as a conditional use. And then
I'm not going to belabor it. You know better than I. I'm confident you'll take care of it. I don't need to discuss it anymore. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I promise this would just be for this park, but just to check the box, it has to be added to the list of uses. Otherwise, it's a conflict with the zoning. And if any future board is wondering what it is, they should review these minutes to make sure we're all in agreement that this is for this park. It's a conditional use. Any future one, presumably, if any future board reads the voting requirement as we all do, that they would need a vote to satisfy the condition of that use in that park.
Further questions, comments? So what is our purpose of this particular discussion, Counselor?
I
think Mr. Simonson had her hand raised. I was just simply speaking to
purpose is, yeah, whether or not you want to accept the DOLA $1 million grant, just as a nod. The agreement will come before you as a resolution. They just have a certain amount of money, and if we don't want it, they want to offer it to the next group.
Okay.
Second thing is, do you want it located here, or do we want to have further discussion about that? The voters will now allow it there, but is that where you want it?
I'll take a consensus of the board. Mayor Pro Tem?
If this was the UEB's preferred location, and if it wasn't our preferred location, we shouldn't have put it on the ballot. We did put it on the ballot because it was the recommended location and the voters overwhelmingly approved it. So to me, it's proceeding with what the voters have approved and what the UEB has recommended, and we should go forward. And like the administrator says, we'll have final decision on whether to accept the grant when that agreement's brought to us, but we should go forward on the course that we've already outlined.
Trustee Carrolls?
I agree.
Trustee Miller?
Agreed.
Trustee Waugh,
Yes, agreed.
and Trustee Lowell.
Yes on Bone Park, yes on the grant.
Okay. Unanimously approved by the board. Bring it forward. Bring it forward.
Will do.
Get the money.
And we'll be bringing back the ordinance for that
Okay,
very minor text amendment once it
All right.
goes through PCDC.
excellent. Madam Clerk, please read the next item into the record.
The next item is Resolution 2022-9, resolution of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, referring a question to the registered electors of the Town of Lyons pursuant to Colorado Revised State Statutes 31-11-111 to a question regarding an off-highway connecting trail between Lyons' existing parks and trail system and Hall Ranch open space.
Do we want to go with the staff report on this first?
I don't really have one. This was requested by trustees or Mayor Pro Tem Browning.
Do we have any information in regard to where Boulder County is at the present time that could be relayed to the board at this time?
I think it was reported at your last meeting that they had said, oh gosh, I will have to find the date and.
Is David on? Is David on?
Grove is the most recent, had the most recent.
Yeah, he is. He's on.
Could you relate the present position of the county in regard to, I think what they mentioned, GIS and things such as that, David, please?
Yeah, I haven't gotten a very recent update, but like I said before, we're still awaiting a report and we're hoping to have that by the end of January. They are just delayed with some GIS updates.
Okay. Then we'll proceed to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, Attorney Dittman drew up the actual ballot language. I'd sent him a draft and he improved on it. I like his language because it follows along with the resolution that the board approved unanimously last year, where we basically requested Boulder County Parks and Open Space to enter into discussions with the Town of Lyons about an off-highway connecting trail to Hall Ranch. And the way this is phrased, and I think Attorney Dittman did a good job on it, is should the Town of Lyons undertake efforts to work with Boulder County and Boulder County Parks and Open Space to establish and maintain a connecting trail. So it's directed to something that the Town of Lyons would do in the future to try to work with them. And it doesn't demand that Boulder County or Boulder County Open Space do anything, or it basically says that we would like to continue. It polls the voters, basically ask their opinion on whether we should continue that effort. And I think it'll be a popular measure with Lyons area voters for a number of reasons, both economic development and people around here like their parks and trails. And part of it is, in my mind, is besides just the connection to Hall, is if you've been around on the Hall Ranch Trail recently on nice weather weekends, it is literally jam packed. It's getting like kind of like the ski areas on good snow days. When you have a good weather weekend and you try to use the Hall Ranch Trail, I don't even go out there on Saturdays and Sundays. It's just too crowded. And you look at the parking lot at Hall Ranch on a good weather weekend, and people are parking all up and down the highway. And it's obvious that the existing trail capacity we have in our area is overwhelmed. And this would be an additional trail. And it is, as I pointed out before, we have a parking lot in Bone Park now that's been completed as part of the flood recovery improvements. That is 1/3 of a mile from a potential trailhead spot on this trail. And so you wouldn't have to put in a big new parking lot for this trail. And I hope that's a selling point to Boulder County and Boulder County Open Space. But basically, this is just to try to continue the discussions with them. It doesn't bind anybody to anything. It just really ask for the voters' opinions on this. Since we're already having a municipal ballot in April, it doesn't cost us anything extra to put this on a ballot. So let's see what the local voters think. And if Boulder County Parks and Open Space says, yes, they think this is feasible, maybe this will help them in obtaining priority and budgeting for it. If they say no, maybe it will cause their advisory board, which they have, or ultimately the county commissioners to give it some further thought. But it doesn't require anybody to do anything. It just asks the voters' opinion, and I think that's a good thing to do.
Any further comments? Trustee Carrolls.
I would agree and echo Mayor Pro Tem's statements. As I've spoken with not only him, but some of the hiking groups, the mountain biking groups that have done a lot of work on these trails throughout Boulder County for decades. And this is just another safe space. I hate using that term, I'm sorry. A safe location off Highway 7 without having to hike up that trail or hike close to the river where the bank is too steep. We've been told it's too steep. And we know it is steep there. But also the second kind of an extra benefit of this trail, if you serpentine it up that hill correctly, follow the highway up, and then you cut northwest towards the top, is towards the top, you could get a nice fire break up there. And we just heard the discussion from our fire leaders just earlier this evening in the workshop. The more fire trails, access, and breaks you have, the better it is when it comes to keeping a fire away from where you don't want it, and that would be the town of Lyons. Or anything we can start doing to our west and moving west with breaks and clearings. And this trail can be part of that. It allows quick access. Having fire breaks, having a great firefighting crew close by that can't easily access an area, well, it really doesn't do you any good. A trail like this, where that's going and getting personnel where you need to for that effort, and also rescuing and helping others that need help on the trails is another benefit of this opportunity we have to get this connecting trail put in. So yes, going to the people and asking them this question, I think is a very good first step, and I think we need to move forward with it.
Further comments? Go ahead.
Made a motion, I don't know.
Go ahead, Town Clerk Vasquez.
I just had a comment to Mayor Pro Tem's comment of saying, since we were having an election anyway, this wouldn't cost us anything. I've only had 5 people pick up packets to run for office. I've had 1 turned in. If I don't get enough people to run, I could cancel the election, but if there is a ballot question, I would have to have it for that ballot question alone.
Well, you can't partially cancel an election.
Right, you can't. So I would have to have it just for the ballot question. Exactly. Yeah. So just.
Are there any further comments?
Is there a motion on the floor?
No, there isn't. We're asking questions. Trustee Miller. Trustee Miller.
Are we doing just direction and discussion, or are we doing, is this direction and discussion, or is this actually a resolution that we're trying to pass?
It's a resolution.
This is a resolution.
Okay, that's what, because it's under direction and discussion on the agenda, so it's a little bit confusing.
I think it was intended as a general business item, so I apologize.
It's listed as a resolution.
Yes.
It's under general business. Okay. Yeah.
It is? Okay, but so sorry, that was my mistake. I thought it was under direction.
Are there any further questions?
Yeah, I have a comment, so.
Well, wait till after the motion. No further questions?
I guess I have a question of the town clerk. If we end up not having enough applicants for board positions, I know you said there was an end of January kind of deadline of sorts to submit printed ballots. When's the last date we could cancel the election?
Oh, I have that up here. Hold on. It looks like January 31st, because that would also be the last day for any candidate that would want to withdraw from the election. So you would have that option to withdraw, and if there's not enough candidates, we could cancel the election.
Yeah, I really had envisioned this as an add-on to the what would be the normal election. I don't know if there's some way, if it turns out we're not going to have a candidate election. I mean, we'd be conducting this election ourselves, right? So what if the town board if we're not going to have a candidate election, what if the town board on first meeting in February said rescind this resolution? Could we do that if we decide we wanted to? In other words, not have an election just for this purpose.
So long as the timing works out, we could. I'd defer to the clerk for the timing.
Well, if they could rescind it before in that first week of February, I guess they could, but I need to get my ballots ordered by then. And if they pull that ballot question before I need to get ballots ordered, then it's canceled and we wouldn't have to do anything.
When you need to order ballots by?
The first week in February to meet UACAVA deadlines.
Okay, so long as that it's on the 7th, we can continue this to a date certain to the 7th if you wanted to. So we would know by then how many people are elected. Then that should suffice, I would think.
Well, we'll actually know.
Well, no, that's actually not true, because you needed the first week of February, which should end on the 4th. Is that correct?
Right, and we should know by the 24th who is throwing their hat in the ring. That's the last day for them to turn in their packets.
Okay, well, we're planning, there's a good possibility of a special meeting in the last week of January. So maybe we do this now, and then we can always bring it back if at the board's direction, if not enough people apply. Would that satisfy the concern, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I had never wanted to, part of putting it on the April ballot was the idea of not having to do any extra expense. And we have to seriously discuss if it was worth what the cost would be. The estimated cost of doing an election, I guess, whether there's candidates or a ballot question, is still $3,000 to $5,000, something like that.
Yes, the last one we held in for the Board of Trustees, I think it was close to 5,000. And then this question that we just had with Boulder County came in just for the question to be added onto their ballot was, at around the $3,000 mark.
Okay. Okay. I think I still need to make a motion to approve it, but if it turns out that there aren't enough candidates to have an election, then we can, at either a special meeting or the first meeting in February, entertain, we could put it on the agenda to possibly rescind. I guess we can rescind a resolution as easy as we can pass one. Counselor, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, that's kind of what I intend to do then when it's appropriate to make a motion.
Are there any further questions? It is appropriate to make a motion, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move the adoption of resolution 2022-9, referring a question to the voters on the connection between Lyons and the Hall Ranch open space.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Now we'll enter into comments. Trustee Rogan could not attend because of a family emergency, but she asked if her comment could be entered into the record. And I would like the town clerk to read it at this time.
Okay. Okay, yes, this is from Trustee Rogan. In the event that I cannot make tonight's meeting, these are I would like to submit this comment regarding the Hall Ranch Connector Trail and hope that someone pulls it from consent. I do not think this should go on the April ballot for the following reasons. Number one, this is not an emergency. It has not been identified as a priority even except by Mayor Pro Tem and 2 former members of the Parks Commission. Number two, we have agreed to give Boulder County open space until the end of January, at least, to conduct a study and prepare an analysis. Putting this on the ballot now would look like we don't negotiate in good faith, which will not bode well for future negotiations. Number three, absent the Boulder County open space study, we will not know the environmental impacts of such a trail and thus cannot educate voters with complete information on the issue. Number four, there is no lack of bike trails now. Waiting until November to put this on the ballot will not have a negative impact. Number five, Highway 7 is not yet complete. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you for reading that into the record. I had the distinct privilege of meeting the director of Parks and Open Space a couple of weeks ago now. And I have an email correspondence from her that I would also like read into the record, Madam Clerk.
Okay, let me find that one. This is from, I apologize if I say her name wrong, Therese Lawaki. Hi, Nicholas. Thanks for reaching out regarding the town board meeting Tuesday. Our staff have been pulling together recent information to help fill out the picture of the potential trail corridor. I'm glad you think the town board resolution is unnecessary. Our longstanding collaboration with the town of Lyons is something Boulder County will continue. A good example is the andesite mine reclamation work. We are looking forward to developing a management plan for that property that will serve the town of Lyons and larger community once the mine is reclaimed. It was nice meeting you at our office the other day, and I look forward to having some time to sit down and talk more. With regards, Therese.
Thank you. My comment is simply that when we passed our original resolution, we gave Boulder County Open Space a certain amount of time to respond. They're having trouble with the new GIS system. And I can tell you that one of the comments that Teresa made to me, in addition to that, when I met her was, we are so swamped now because of the fires and things that we have to respond to in that regard. I think honestly that we should just be a little more patient. I have had the distinct pleasure of dealing with the county on open space issues on 3 separate occasions. The Olson property acquisition that allowed the Heil Trail to come down into Lyons and created an incredible amenity for bicyclists. The acquisition of Steamboat Mountain, when I negotiated an agreement between O.C. Davis and Boulder County Open Space, and with the county commissioners, a little different because it was the commissioners and not open space, on the approval of an additional housing development up Stone Canyon, which the Board of Trustees directed me to negotiate. And if you think I actually wanted 72 more houses of traffic going by my house, very sadly mistaken, but it was a directive that the Board of Trustees gave me. And so I pursued it and I was successful. And the only reason that it didn't come to fruition is that one of the commissioners was ill with cancer and died very shortly afterwards. And the commissioners at the time did not want to vote without that commissioner present. And then the people who were considering the subdivision withdrew their request. So I know about the county, and I think that the best way to get this done, if we really want to achieve it, is to be patient, wait till they come out with their study, see what it says, and not take a non-binding resolution, if it passes, which I'm sure it would, to the county commissioners as leverage to try to get them to recommend to the Boulder County open space people a change in how they feel this decision should be made. That particular piece of property that we're talking about has been kept wild for over 20 years. I don't know what the necessity of degrading it. I don't understand the importance in regard to juxtapositioning a certain property that the county decided that long ago to keep wild. And I'm not talking necessarily about eagles, but I will say one thing, that when that property, if it becomes a public trail, there will be an inordinate amount of traffic. Let there be no question of a doubt in our minds. And so it will degrade the ecosystem. It will degrade the animal life. And what I worry about more than anything else is not necessarily the eagles, although they're up there, but there's a cliff up there. And if there's that many people that access that trail from that direction, I just fear, I fear that, to be perfectly honest with you. And so I will be voting against this. Any further comments?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
In response to both Trustee Rogan's submitted comments and the mayor's, I don't think either set of comments is a fair reading of what's being proposed here. Nobody is making a demand or even a request to either open space or the commissioners. The language is very carefully worded, as was the prior resolution. It says, should the town of Lyons undertake efforts to work with Boulder County and Boulder County Parks and Open Space. It doesn't say to demand anything or insist on it or require them doing it. It's what we've basically said in the resolution prior that passed unanimously, which was we would like to work with them toward this trail, which has big benefits to the town of Lyons and its residents. Our existing trails are too crowded. As the Parks and Open Space and the Parks and Recreation Commission in its recommendation to us said, they believe that a trail is possible to do that will come nowhere near the eagles. There's an existing road that goes on the Hall Ranch side of this. There's an existing parking lot that can be used, so you wouldn't need any new parking. It's really an exploratory effort to sit down and talk with the open space people and Boulder County. Trustee Rogan said something about Highway 7 not being completed, but that was really the impetus for the Parks Commission and the board's resolution is it was hoped 18 to 20 years ago when this same subject was being discussed, that as the speaker during audience business said, that you might be able to come up with some way to do a bridge across the river and an underpass to connect Old South St. Vrain Road with Hall Ranch. But in the course of planning what they're doing now on Highway 7, Cdot made it clear that that's not going to happen, that they have no budget for an underpass and no plans for an underpass. So that possibility that was kicked around 18 to 20 years ago isn't going to happen. And I'm all for being patient. But as you said, Mr. Mayor, this was discussed and actually kind of pushed by a number of Lyons residents 18 to 20 years ago, and nothing has happened in the interim. The other thing that prompted this was the washout of the trail that was partway along Highway 7 that had been done with CDOT's permission before the flood. And CDOT made it very clear, and with good reason, they showed us the numbers and they showed us the pictures, that wiped out trail could not be reconstructed after the flood. So it was time to look at this anew. We've been patient for 18 to 20 years. It became clear that the Highway 7 underpass wasn't going to work, and it became clear that the trail that was wiped out wasn't going to be rebuilt. So we could wait another 18 to 20 years and see if Boulder County Open Space, changes their mind. But I think there's throughout the county and probably in the Lyons area as well, there's always been sort of attention and some differing viewpoints between those who would like Boulder County Open Space that has been funded by taxpayers for years to remain pristine wilderness area, not used by many, used for wildlife habitat, preserving open space. For example, Steamboat Mountain. It's not accessible to the public. It's beautiful. It's an icon of Lyons, and maybe that's the kind of open space that should be remain inaccessible to the public. But when the only way to get from town to Hall Ranch is to go on Highway 7, the traffic for which has increased exponentially over the years. What do the people in the Lyons area feel about the importance of an off-highway trail there? And all this does is ask for their opinion. Doesn't commit the town to anything, doesn't commit the county to anything. It's simply polling the town of Lyons residents and what they think, how important is this to them? Maybe there'll be, I expect some residents will argue that property should be kept as closed space. And there'll be others, including the biking community, the hiking community, the running community, who have thought for years this would help Lyons' reputation and appeal as an outdoor recreation facility. Mr. Tamburello did a whole presentation to us at a workshop saying they really wanted Lyons to adopt as a dedicated policy, promoting Lyons as an outdoor recreation destination. That's when A-Lodge moved here. That's what A-Lodge does in the Boulder area. Who knows what's going to come with a hotel or tiny homes or whatever, but this is a big attraction for Lyons. There's the question that has gone on for years and years and years. How do we get people to stop in Lyons instead of motoring through here on their way to Estes Park and Rocky Mountain National Park? Well, an improved mountain bike system that's not overcrowded, and hiking system and running trails is one way to do that. And yeah, patience is a virtue, but 18 to 20 years of patience with some developments in the meantime, a flood, a new highway that has showed us no progress. There was no indication before the Parks and Recreation Commission and the board started asking Boulder County Open Space to discuss this with us, that they were going to make any change whatsoever. So this is really just put it to the Lyons voters and see what they think. Is it important to them? I don't see anything wrong with doing that. As we just discussed, however, if this should end up being potentially the only thing on the ballot, I do not think fiscally it would be worth spending $3,000 to $5,000 just put this single question on the ballot. So I will state on the record, it would be in my intent at the first meeting in February or a special meeting if the opportunity presents itself before then. If it turns out there's not going to be a candidate election, to withdraw this resolution and remove it from the ballot. And it could go forward in November. But I think the timing is appropriate if there's going to be a municipal election. If there's not, then it'd be my intent to ask to rescind this resolution and not go forward with an election on just this measure. So for those reasons, I think I'm requesting and will be supporting approval of this resolution tonight, subject to it being rescinded if it's the only thing that would be on the ballot.
Let me respond to the Mayor Pro Tem. The patience I'm talking about is not the patience of the last 18 years. The patience I'm talking about is between when we passed our resolution with an agreement to negotiate with Boulder County. That was a few months ago. They are on it. You heard what the director of Boulder County Open Space said. They are on it. They are doing their study. Be patient and wait until it comes out. That's all I'm saying. And another thing I'll tell you is that nobody has been more responsible on creating the recreation capital of Boulder County, Lyons, Colorado, as Boulder County Open Space. Nobody else. Trustee Miller.
I am going to vote no on this tonight for the April election. I would vote potentially yes for the November election if the Boulder County has done their due diligence in doing their environmental studies or whatever, making sure that, you know, the trail is going to not be overrun with destroying the property, and the trail is going to be well marked, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to vote yes for it tonight, but with all due respect, it's 10:15, and I would like to, if nobody else has any more things to add, it would be great to vote on this and close this meeting out for the night.
Are there any other comments?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to remind, I'd like Victoria Simonson and Town Clerk Vasquez to help remind us of the IGA in the memorandum of understanding we had with Boulder County. I do believe the last board was informed, very surprisingly, that we have an agreement with Boulder County that any purchases of land, open space and purchase of land by Boulder County in our planning area, we would be notified and be discussed with. We found out well after the fact that that happened. They purchased the land and did not inform the town of Lyons. Victoria, you remember that?
Which piece?
Far east, next to the, I can't remember her, is it Shady Lane, Mark? Way out there, the trailer home that we helped repair, Lyons volunteers helped repair the roof on, that farm property that's right to the east of that.
That's not in our planning area.
I thought that was, but there's land. Was there the land across the street also? So that was determined to be just outside.
Yeah, that's outside our planning area.
Because I know that was a big discussion we had. I don't remember the outcome. I couldn't find my notes on that. Okay, well, that's good. I'm going to vote yes for it because I'd like to see the answer to it. And I'd like to see us, if there is no election, go ahead and put it back on the November ballot and move forward. And just to keep the ball, yeah, Mr. Mayor, you discussed patience, but while you're having patience, it doesn't help to have plans in place to just kind of keep pressure on. We know how things get lost in the shuffle. We've done it ourselves. We've had our constituents ask to do things, yeah, we'll take up, and all of a sudden a few months go by and oops, we missed it. We'll get it. So keeping the pressure on doesn't hurt, so I'll be in favor of it.
I'll just make one last comment. And that's that I think, honestly, that this is a staff-to-staff issue. The Board of Trustees has already given their direction by resolution to enter into discussions with Boulder County. Now let's let the staffs of each entity bring before the board what the results are. Again, I'm talking about patience. It's not going to take much longer to get an answer from them. Any further comments? Did you want to make one, Administrator Simonson?
I'm going to bite my tongue.
Bite your tongue. Go ahead, bite it. All right. Any further comments? No further comments. We have a motion and a second for approval of Resolution 2022-9. I'll call for the vote.
Mayor Angelo,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
No.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Caravas,
All right.
and Trustee Waugh.
No.
The motion fails by a 3-3 vote. Does not pass. Discussion for future agenda items. Are there any agenda items that any of the trustees would wish to put on future agendas? Trustee Lowell?
Yeah, I'd like to put on future agenda discussion and direction to the staff and legal on the transfer of lots 17, 39, and 40 from Summit to the town. If you remember, we negotiated these lots in the development agreement. We actually changed the Lyons Municipal Code to accommodate that. And it's been 6 months going on 7.
Any other items?
Trustee Lowell, can you give me those lot numbers so I get them right?
Yeah, 17, 39, and 40. They're referenced in paragraph 7 of the development agreement with Summit.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I have a list. I would second the request that I believe Trustee Lowell made earlier about proceeding with the Martin parcel annexation, getting that on a future agenda when we're ready to proceed on that. As discussed earlier with the Finance Director, Eystone, I believe I would request for the March 7th agenda, an item about to revisit how we're going to fund the unfunded portion of the 4th Avenue Safe Routes to School project, with the hope that final year-end numbers on receipts and expenses would have been received by that time. Also, a future agenda item, I believe this was mentioned earlier as well, the sale of the Apple Valley Water Treatment Plant that we've been discussing for a year or so. I would also like a future agenda item to discuss necessary, what I think are necessary revisions to the special meeting, the procedures for calling special meetings. If you look at that section of the code right now, it's antiquated. It requires written consent by a majority of trustees to have a special meeting, and delivery of requests for special meetings to their homes or businesses. And we're not following that procedure. I also think there's some more refinements needed in special meeting procedures where, as somebody requested earlier tonight, that before board members are asked whether they can attend a special meeting, they would be given some hint as to what it might be about, which we haven't been recently. And finally, I'm not sure if any further action is needed by the town board to finalize the funding of the local match on the Broadway project. We've requested the LURA to appropriate $40,000 of that local match. And I think that may be coming up at the January LURA meeting. But I don't know if the town needs to accept that funding or finalize the town's portion of the funding of the Broadway project, but we need to finalize how the rest of the Broadway project is going to be funded. And I think that needs to be done by this board because it's been discussed several times before a new board comes up. And that's a number of things, but a number of these fall in the category of things this board has discussed on more than one occasion that have never been finalized. And I think it's incumbent on us to wrap up those things and get them finalized before we would turn it over fresh to the new board.
Thank you. Anything else by anybody else? Okay. Summary of action items. Madam Clerk.
I've got Trustee Waugh would like to see firefighting efforts for rentals. This is from the workshop. Also, fire equipment needed for 3-story building fire protection. Number 3 was an update on the sale of Apple Valley Water Plant property by Trustee Waugh. Trustee Caravas requested a follow-up on the 2nd Avenue Bridge resealing of the decking where it's cracking. The mayor requested 3 items. A was a follow-up on Ed Bruder. B was the analysis and justification on WeCasa sewer charges. And C was the Riverbend taps. When did town officially take action? Item 6 is the update on the flow and load capacity at the wastewater treatment facility. Number 7 was a cost estimate for the new basins at the wastewater treatment facility. Number 8 was the attorney is to start the appeal on the Yoda decision. Number 9 is proceed with the 2 Longmont projects as presented by Director Kaplan and fund as directed. Number 10 is to accept the $1 million grant from DOLA and move forward with the solar farm. Number 11 is bring the ordinance forward with the text amendment for solar farm in the Parks and Open Space Zone.
I have a couple more. We discussed it again, but the Keith Bell disposition of the hill, the driveway and drainage issues on Evans. Did you have that one?
Thank you.
No.
And clarification on the it was actually the Denver Post article, I believe, not the Times Call. Trustee Caravas, so I can follow up on that. I had a couple more. There was a couple. Just a minute. Move forward with sending the LAH or the Lyons Creates letter of support, and move forward on the Mural Town Hall project, and crack repair that was conducted on the north side of town, following up on that, and then sending a copy of the Honeywell suit when it arrives. Oh, and what happens if the Yoder house is uninhabitable and she stays there? Whew, I think that's our longest list ever.
Wow.
Counselor? Should be a super easy one, right? I don't have anything else. I don't have anything else.
Sounds like we need a special meeting.
No, be quiet, Trustee Waugh. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I don't think there's going to be any discussion. I'll call for the vote. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Angelo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Waugh?
Aye.
Trustee Lowell? And Trustee Caravas.
Meeting is adjourned. Be safe, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.